Hello and welcome to another Howitzer and Buzzsaw show. I am George the Howitzer Gerbo.
And I am Mike, the Buzzsaw Asti.
Sports Talk back with you as we grind our way through the month of May, filled with playoffs, filled with intrigue, filled with some sweeps, at least in the both sides of the ledger, on the basketball and on the hockey sides, all of that we'll get into in just a few
Philadelphia,
moments.
a two-time victim of getting swept.
Yeah.
They're there, though. At least
not
they're
many
there.
People will be sad about that. So, apologies to
Philadelphia getting swept in both. Well, actually, the weirdest thing is about getting swept. I think probably Philadelphia fans, knowing them, they're probably more upset that not only did they get swept in both the NHL and NBA, but their fans were even embarrassed because they had more Knicks fans in Philadelphia during the NBA playoffs than that was brought up too. But
I had
Philadelphia, two-time victim.
Yeah, I had to do the double check. It's a good place to start on the HBS. I had to do the double check of when I saw the New York TV stations interviewing Knicks fans, and I'm like, it was straight out of Side Talk, which does the pretty famous ones outside of MSG, and then I'm like, oh no, they were in Philadelphia tonight.
So, Tyrese Maxey literally said he felt like he was at the Garden in Philadelphia. So the Sixers' own player is saying it, and kind of surprising to even be there. Imagine if you're the Celtics watching that series, though, thinking, how did we let this team beat us? But yeah, at least they're there. I mean, I guess that's the response they can provide to some fans that, hey, we were in round 2 in 2 sports, but getting swept. How there were you? How there were you? But yes, Gritty also took an L on social media to the official Carolina Hurricanes account on X. A lot of losses for Philadelphia. They still have cheesesteaks, though, and maybe an underrated city overall.
Shout out to Stormy, the Hurricanes mascot. Yeah. Stormy's got the game to fight back. Plenty of things going on. The baseball All-Star games in Philly. Aronimane goes to PGA this week. It's a busy sports time season in not only the entire Commonwealth, but specifically the eastern portion of it. So
well, you think they're going to forget because of all that, but they're not. I don't know if they're going to forget about those two teams losing in that fashion. Maybe just for those couple weeks, maybe. But Philadelphia got swept in both, and as we matriculate now into the deep of the second round, and some teams actually advancing out and already in the conference finals in both of those two sports. And now that the weather finally consistently gets warm, it is full-on golfing weather and enjoying your backyard weather, and I'm a fan of both. We now get near crowning champions in these two sports, and the intrigue is even off the field for another topic that we will have to likely close with some Aaron Rodgers talk, like everybody else. But why not here again on this episode of the Howitzer and Buzzsaw Show? You can find it everywhere you get your podcasts and on social media at Gerbo3, at Mike Asti, and at Howitzer Buzzsaw.
Easy place to start, as Mike alludes to, teams already advancing to the conference finals. That includes the New York Knicks. The hope and the hype is real for Knicks fans. This series, these games, Mike, weren't really close. Game 2 was close, but the Knicks blow them out in game 1 by 40. They blow them out by 30 in the clinching game. Philadelphia looked like they didn't want to be there at certain points of it. And if you're a Knicks fan, because the Knicks have grinded through some of these 7-gamers in the last couple of years, the one last year to Indiana, and for them to break through on this level, they beat the Hawks in the first round, just even though Trae Young is not there anymore, they still get to.
Well, CJ McConnell ended up kind of channeling Trae Young for a couple games. People forget the Hawks had a 2-1 series lead, but ever since that point and CJ's output, he then got quiet. He had 8 points, I believe, in one of those later games, and then the Knicks are on a 7-game win streak, a 7-game heater. It is literally historic. This is now the largest point differential through the first 2 rounds for any NBA playoff team ever at plus 194. The Warriors with Steph and KD in 2017 were at plus 170, what people thought would never be beat. This is significantly higher than that. And You could argue, I guess, the Hawks really weren't legit or weren't ready, and the Sixers, as we're saying, it's insane they were even there. They shouldn't have beat Boston. If the Celtics stopped trying to shoot threes every other possession, I don't think they would have lost that series, because I don't even know if it's so much the Sixers didn't want to be there, but Joel Embiid and Paul George and company, you throw drop coverage on them, they can't handle it. They can't play defense against a team like the Knicks. And I've been writing about this. The Knicks have kind of switched it up a little bit. Karl Anthony Towns is now pretty much distributing the basketball, and you're seeing 10 assists from him per night instead of the 10 rebounds and 10 points plus you're used to. And they are winning by 30 points without even Jalen Brunson having to be as dominant as he was in past postseasons. But as we all also know, they were in the conference finals last year. They fired Thibodeau. They bring in Mike Brown, who led LeBron to a finals early in his career and has been an assistant on some title teams with Golden State. If the Knicks don't get to the NBA Finals, despite being as dominant as they are, it will all be for naught, and you'll have Knicks fans that want Brown fired, despite clearly unlocking something offensively. So I guess that is the talking point here. Is this a Knicks team that is finally ready with this group and for this franchise that's waited literally through this century and well over 25 years to at least get back to the NBA Finals? They've not been there since 99. Or is this a little fool's gold because the Sixers aren't really that good and the Hawks are young and not fully ready yet, and then they're not going to get there and lose, and this would all be for naught?
I think, yes, that it's the time, and for two reasons. As I look on the other side of this bracket with a Cavaliers team that can't win anywhere but Cleveland, which is bearing itself out once again.
That's going to be a 7-game series, I would think. That looks like a 7-game series to me.
And a Detroit team that almost didn't get out of a Detroit team that's the number 1 seed and almost didn't get out of the first round, save for, if you're a Magic fan, an unfortunate 30. Did they lead by 30 in that game? Led by 20 in that game that they ended up losing and losing the series in. A collapse on
the
multiple.
Last one was a collapse, but up until that point, the Magic, the Pistons had to win 3 in a row. The Magic had a 3-1 series. It looked like
they collapsed in Game 7 and collapsed because Orlando went up big in the series early, and so neither of those two teams look. If I'm looking at the opponent, neither Detroit or Cleveland look that intimidating, or like a Boston team like we had last year, or like an Indiana team like we had in recent years. But the main point of this, Mike, is that the Knicks and how diverse they've been with the scoring. Shout out Deuce McBride, Mountaineer, 21 points from 3 in Game 4 because OG Anunoby was injured. The Villanova
team scoring and in threes, and they also tied an NBA record for team threes in a playoff game with 25. And Deuce, who's only in there because of OG being hurt, and Deuce has been a great spark plug, and we know him from being a great Mountaineer. He's had a rough year, even when healthy. He hadn't played that well, even in the playoffs off the bench. And then he explodes like that. And why? They pretty much left him wide open. He even said it. They didn't cover me. But that also could argue, that could counter what you're saying, though, George. That could argue that Detroit or Cleveland is at least going to try to cover everybody. The Sixers probably were not equipped to handle a deep Knicks team. You could argue that whether it's Cleveland or Detroit, and Detroit, I think we would agree, would be the tougher matchup.
Yes, 100%.
You have Cade Cunningham. They were tougher during the regular season. We can figure that if it's the Cavaliers and they get through this, because anybody could win that series, then James Harden's going to have one of those 0 for 3-point games, and somehow they're going to lose in 6 or 7 because Harden doesn't show up. That's just been his career. Mitchell can't do it on his own. But this is going to be different in the conference finals, and if they do not get through the conference finals, I'm not saying Brown will get fired after 1 year, but Thibodeau just got them there and they lost. It'll be a little bit of, what does it matter setting all these records through these first 2 rounds? That's how Knicks fans are going to react.
19.4 point average margin of victory for New York, which is the largest since we expanded to this current 16-team format in 1984. It just I've not seen them get writ large as a team. It's really going to take a defensive effort. Cleveland can't do it, and Cleveland scoring if Spider Mitchell isn't able to put it together for them. You saw like the games they needed Harden on the road in games 1 and 2 in Detroit in that series, and he was unable to provide. Now he
did it the other night, but
he did in game 3 in Cleveland, and it's the Cavaliers have not won any road games this playoffs. It's just very bizarre. You're going to have to at some point because you're not the number 1 seed, so you can't just keep doing this.
I mean, last year they might have been able to pull it off, but
last year they might have been able to pull it off. They could not this year. So no, I'm impressed with the Knicks, how they're able to score. It reminds me, if I can shout out Mike D'Antoni and the D'Antoni family, who was a very early proponent of the just start shooting it from 3 thing, and now here the Knicks are the team that is doing that.
Before and it does the Warriors, and he did it with Phoenix.
It evokes some of those Golden State type of memories. So not that scoring is everything in the playoffs, but when you're doing it, when we watched the Knicks before, Mike, it just seemed like it was everything had to go through Cat and Brunson, and now they just, with the experience of having been that deep,
they were not nearly as good offensively last year. You could argue they were better defensively, though. If they would lose, you could argue they were better defensively last year, and they're way better offensively. But to me, it feels like, even if that's the correct pendulum here and they sacrifice some defense to be better on offense, and now they're switching it where Cat's getting all these assists and they're now involving other players who are able to do more, and Brunson still doing his thing. And Mikal Bridges, who they traded all those picks for, he's finally stepping up because he's been a bit of a rough Nick the last year or so. I mean, he's not really lived up to everything they dealt to get him, and he's really partly there because Brunson and him are friends. And going back to Philly, if there's anyone who owns Philadelphia, I think it's Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges, who won national championships in Philly and now are eliminating the Sixers with the Knicks and bringing their fans to do it. But the other issue is, while they're sacrificing one for the other, the Knicks offense is picking up the slack. Even if they don't get back to where they were last year defensively, or even if they have a worse, because if it's Detroit or even if it's Cleveland, you could argue the Knicks would have a worse defense. Certainly if it's Detroit, they'd have a way worse defense. But if you're Detroit, and say Detroit's there, and they have the better defense for sure, a great defensive effort against this Knicks team is holding them to 120. Because they're getting 130 and 140 every game. So if they score 120 or even score 100, I don't think the Pistons can get 120 through a 7-game series. I'm not sure Cleveland can, unless James Harden steps up and gives you what we've now seen from game 3 and 4, getting over 20 in those games. If we get that James Harden, maybe they can, because Spider Mitchell can give you 40 points on a dime. But they also don't have the depth that outside of those two, even if they're both at their best, even if Harden's at his best and goes back to his Houston days, they don't have the depth in scoring. Whereas the Knicks can churn, they can have someone off their bench score 25. And again, we saw Deuce has to start and ends up scoring 25. So the Knicks right now are the clear favorite to me.
Yes.
But it is interesting because it is bizarre that you can be this dominant, come off a sweep, and you still have the most pressure of anybody. They have to, at minimum, get to the NBA Finals.
Well, that's,
I know, like, George hates when I do this because it ruins the love of these teams they're receiving right now.
No, but it's merited just because,
title, but they got to get to the NBA Finals. You can lose there, especially to OKC. You can lose there, but you got to get at least there, or else it's the exact same thing you just did a year ago.
Yeah, I know. It's especially because it would have been interesting to see them play Boston, obviously, which didn't come to fruition.
Right.
I feel like that
part of the path is setting up for them, and it never does.
I feel like that would have been a more epic / competitive series. But if you're a Knicks fan, obviously you'll take it. And Philadelphia is a rival anyway, so you'll take it. It definitely has to be a finals appearance, only because with again, no disrespect to those other teams. And Cleveland's been in this place where they've been a good regular season team the last couple of years,
wins,
but they just don't get it over the hump in the playoffs. Detroit has been more of a slow build, and remember, fired their coach, who they paid $70 million, and then fired him after a year. And it's like, no, we're going to try something different.
I mean, they won 20-some games just a few years ago, and last year was their first playoff appearance in almost 2 decades, and now first series win in 2 decades, and all of that. And even you get through the Magic series, but I mean, what is that? Like the Magic were better than they've been in recent years, bringing in Bane, but they weren't.
But no, it is setting up to your point. It's setting up for the Knicks, and that if it's a Knicks team that can't get by the Pistons or the Cavaliers, it will feel like a disappointment because there's 100%. So many things clicking for New York, and those other two teams, specifically Detroit, are less experienced in terms of recent playoff experience.
The way the Knicks are playing right now, and this might sound insane to say for a franchise that's not won a title since 73, not been to the finals since 99, and has had star players during this trek. Granted, you could argue that nothing ever sets up for them. We're saying the past sets up now. When Melo and Stoudemire were there, that was during the Heat big three. Like you had 2 stars, 2 Hall of Famers, then you got another team with 3 of them, and they're beating you in a series, and you can't get through them. Even when you win the division, you can't get through them. And then you now pivoted to even last year. Last year felt like a little bit of a window that the Pacers then stole with Halliburton choking, using the choke sign, and the Pacers were able to get there, and then they almost beat OKC, so they validated that. But now you pivot it to this year. This feels like the most wide open path for the Knicks, while they're also playing their best, while they're also in playoff mode, and they're also the deepest they've been in a long time. And overall, in today's NBA, there's no more big three like the Heat had. This is a wide open league now because of the apron and different things with the cap. A lot of these teams are more well balanced than in past years. However, if they would lose a 7-game series, it would be for naught. And it's because of what I'm about to say now that may sound insane off of the history that we know and how the Knicks always find a way to not get there, not get over the hump. The Knicks right now, George, see if this is insane. The Knicks are actually playing so well right now. I think the conversation could pivot to not just are they the best in the East, but can they actually win the NBA championship? Even against OKC, who's also played great. But the Knicks have been more dominant than even the Thunder. If we're imagining that the Thunder are there against either the Timberwolves or the Spurs, and the Timberwolves got a favor with Wemby's ejection that I actually think was legit and his fault, but maybe we'll get into that later. But that's going to be a good team facing OKC that may drag them to a longer series. You may have an OKC team that's more beat up and having to play more games, even though Shea is the MVP again and they just won the title and they're very deep too. The Knicks are scoring so many freaking points that I don't know who out there, including the Thunder, can score 130 a night, which is what the Knicks are putting up. I think the Knicks are very much in play for not even just getting to the finals, which would validate the firing of Thibodeau and be good enough really for the franchise in general, that they could mess around and go win the title. I don't think that would be insane. And going into the playoffs, you probably would say if they get out of the East, that's a bar. OKC's way better. The West team, whether it be OKC, the Spurs, Minnesota, whoever, even Denver, who lost in the first round, could all beat the Knicks pretty easily. I don't know if that's the case anymore, the way the Knicks are playing in this new offense with Towns running the ship beyond the arc and dishing it out. This Knicks team legit could win the title. And I would even go as far to say that if they win the East, great. They validated everything from last year. But if they go in the NBA Finals, even if it's OKC, and they get swept or lose in 5, I'm not saying you're going to fire anybody, but for the definition of the word disappointing, you could argue it'd be disappointing. How dominant they are now, I think at least they got to drag that to make it a competitive series. Or is that nuts? I mean, I'm watching OKC too, but this Knicks team is putting up historic numbers that we're talking about the 2017 Warriors here.
If it is Oklahoma City and they roll in there with not having yet lost right now, they're 7-0 in these playoffs, likely to go to 12-0 and eliminate the Lakers, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah,
if they somehow steamroll through either Minnesota or if they're at 12-0 in the, I'm not going to begrudge the Knicks for not getting one.
Okay, but that's an if.
Yeah,
do you really believe that? Forget this series.
No, I think they'll take a loss to Minnesota or the Spurs.
I could see them taking 2. I think this. I mean, the Spurs beat them 3 times in a month and a half during the regular season. I'm assuming Wemby doesn't get ejected again, and I do think the Spurs are a tougher matchup for OKC because of defensively and because of Wemby. They didn't have an answer for him during the regular season, but I think Minnesota can win a game, and I think the Spurs can win 2. against OKC.
Yeah, I think it's a good transition point to talk about the West, where I do think that San Antonio is the better built team for a series against Oklahoma City.
This is their first playoffs, though. Usually, historically, this never happens where you run through it.
You mentioned Victor Wembanyama, who averaging 20 points, 6 rebounds a game. He was ejected early on. 23 points, 15 rebounds, 6 blocks. I'm sorry, per game for Oklahoma City. And
San Antonio, but
San Antonio.
Yeah.
Could play Oklahoma City. He goes and chops Naz Reid in the head with an elbow.
A monster elbow.
Just a ridiculous
It was
elbow.
like he was in his backyard. That was one hell of an elbow.
Yeah. The warrant, I guess there's multiple levels of it's a flagrant foul. Yeah, I think that's pretty universal. Question is, and you kind of agreed that it did warrant him being ejected, which I would agree with.
It's too obvious. It's too backyard. Like, it literally looks like you're playing in your backyard pickup game when you get frustrated. It was a WWE, MMA, wild elbow. I don't think he can leave it alone, or you set a precedent that he can just throw bows out there.
He doesn't have the precedent of a record against him, let's say, like a
Draymond Green
type of player.
No, whether it's international, whether it's in France, whether it's in the NBA, he doesn't play like this normally.
Yeah. But so doesn't merit any further action to you, suspension wise or whatnot.
Well, they announced before we were recording this they're not going to suspend him, which I think is fine. But I will add this: I'm fine with not suspending him. However, we know the reason why is because if he's suspended, they would devalidate the series. I mean, that's the truth of it.
We can't suspend the Golden Goose type of deal.
Well, I think you cannot suspend him because he's already didn't play a half of another game in which they lost a close one. Mm-hmm. If you're a Spurs fan, you definitely could argue if he was out there, that game would have went differently. Now that's a long series. And you had Anthony Edwards, who's not even starting games because he's not fully 100%. He's not dominating this spot on his own. I'm a little surprised on how good Minnesota is looking, that it actually looks like maybe they could go to the conference finals for 3 years in a row, depending on how Wemby performs the rest of this series. But I don't even know if I would like that as a fan, to have Wemby suspended from a game after already missing a half a game, even though it's on his own and he shouldn't have thrown an elbow like that. As a fan, I think I kind of like that we're going to see the next game that is pivotal that may decide this series. Both teams are going to be at 100% here. Edwards is producing. Wemby, if he can control his elbow, his bionic elbow out there, he's obviously a big impact player. These teams are showing they're much deeper than those two guys. This has been a great series. I'd like to see how they respond. This is his first postseason, how he even responds. And George, he kind of owes his team. So you might see a monster 20-20-20 game from him or something nuts. Mm-hmm. And add the 6 blocks in. So I like that he's not suspended, even though if you look at the elbow and the rule of it, if he would have got suspended, I'm not sure they could argue. And I know that their coach already argued that it's because of the way he's officiated. And this is what I said on social media, because a lot of people were arguing this too, that if you would have officiated him the same as everybody else, he's not going to get frustrated and throw the elbow, even though he threw it and had to get the flagrant and had to get ejected. Ask Shaq about it. Mm-hmm. Ask LeBron James this postseason. Ask any other great San Antonio Spurs big. Ask Tim Duncan. Ask David Robinson. Ask Hakeem Olajuwon. Ask whoever else you want to ask that is with us and is a big person that has been in the NBA. I don't even mean just centers, but just a big, like LeBron. A big person that is bigger than everybody else on the court in the NBA, George, gets officiated differently, and it's always been that way. Now, if you want to argue it shouldn't be that way, because it does give a little advantage that if I'm the smaller guy, if I am theatrical, I'm going to get the whistle from the refs against the bigger guy. Sure. Now, you could argue that's not fair. It happens to LeBron, it happens to everybody else. Shaq got beat up down in the paint all the time and still was able to dunk through everybody. LeBron gets hit in the head, and there weren't calls earlier in this series against Oklahoma City, even though his team's not good enough to really argue as much as they are. But it's the same thing here, and it's Wemby's first run through this in the postseason. And as much as you said he didn't have a rep, my counter to that is which is also no excuses on this ejection. He has no rep in international play, in the Olympics, in France, in the regular season of the NBA. All of his rep has been he's a clean player and he's just big and dominant. Sure, he's never been in an environment in which there's this much physicality. In international play and in the Olympics, when it's way more wide open and they don't put up with any physicality, you're never going to have anyone trying to beat you up because you're bigger. There's no theatrics there. They wouldn't put up with it. In the regular season in the NBA, is not as physical. But in the NBA playoffs and in the postseason, whether it's the 90s or now, and it's not as physical now as it was in the 90s, of course, but it's still way more physical than anything he's ever dealt with. So, George, the first sign of some physicality, he's flipping out. It's not like he had to deal with this before in France. It's a different style now in the NBA playoffs. And he owes his team a game. They could still win the series for sure. But I have no sympathy for, well, he's just officiated differently. Yeah, every big has ever been officiated differently. I mean, did you think there should be a suspension here? I mean, or even not the ejection? I mean, I understand.
There was part of
it was officiated.
Yeah, I could. There's part of me that, because I'm comparing it way back when to the Ron Artest elbow where he kind of like winds up and does it. But
that's a guy with a rep, though. That's a guy with a rep. That's different than this.
And that's a guy with a rep. And I could almost make the case for not ejecting him just because it was in the midst of the tie-up. And like you said, the guy's, 7+ feet and he's got crazy long arms. But no, this was intentional enough that, flagrant 2, and you need to.
But it's not an elbow because you're bigger. It's an elbow. He won. He was elbowing. There is no video that defends that being an inadvertent elbow or like my bad. And I also do not believe, because I've heard him in multiple interviews. Like, he speaks fine English. He's a smart person. I don't believe too when he just went to sit down thinking nothing was going to come of this. Like, oh, what does that mean? What's going on here? Why is this happening? You just elbowed somebody as if you're at WrestleMania. I think there's going to be something that's going to come of this. Like, that was all ridiculous. Do you like the way the Spurs are even handling this, though? I don't. I mean, they're sitting up there saying that they're giving him all the excuses in the world and saying it's because of the way things are officiated. I, again, will argue this is the same way LeBron's officiated now. You are big and dominant. You're an alien who is going to win MVPs and titles. This is your life. If you cannot deal with it, you got to go back to France. This is it. It'll be like this.
It's hard to sympathize with them just because this is the NBA playoffs. There's kind of this negative, whether it's Shaq, whether it's David. I'll use the guys that were on his team, whether it's Tim Duncan or David Robinson.
I brought them up, right?
Yeah. Like that. It's just they
dealt with it, and it was even more physical back then. And they didn't elbow anybody get ejected out of games.
Yeah. So I'm not too.
Where's that highlight of Tim Duncan
been out of shape by
ejected? Like,
by I saw some of the comments, and it's just like, turn your head at it. Like, that's a little strange. They'll be fine. You stand up for your guy and you do the thing and you try and win the public opinion on it.
They almost won the game anyway. I mean, they almost won the game anyway.
Yeah.
They almost won the game anyway, and they may still get out of this series, of course. But they'll likely be fine. I will add, and maybe ask you. And while I think the ejection was valid and warranted, and I don't want to hear anything until everyone else got officiated, I'm still surprised that it happened. Because the NBA refs, more so than other sports, always get the talk about reps of doing the bidding for the TV market or the league or the commissioner. And I'm not saying they really do, but that's always the rep. So this is a clear example, George, that goes the whole other way of any collusion, because I guarantee you the TV markets, and I guarantee you national TV, and I guarantee you the league does not want Wemby out of a game for a half in the postseason. So they went by the letter of the law. They did not care whether it's Wemby, whether it's LeBron, whether it's De'Aaron Fox, whether it's clearly Anthony Edwards throws an elbow, he's getting kicked out. Like, they do not care who you are and what's on your resume and the cachet you bring for the TV. They probably lost ratings for that game. I bet you after he got ejected, ratings dropped off. for non-Spurs fans, non-Timberwolves fans, the casual fan, myself. I was watching, and then after I got ejected, I tuned out for a while, figuring that it was going to be then for Minnesota, and it got closer at the end, but still, they didn't like that, but it happened anyway. So you actually have to, in a weird instance here, I'm going to give some credit to the NBA refs to have the balls to just go by the letter of the law and not care who it is that they are looking at and eject someone that deserved it. Because again, I don't care how hard you're getting hit. You can't elbow like that and expect
you can't
it to
swing
be
wildly away at
you can't expect that. If he does it again, he's going to get kicked out again. Like you cannot, you can't do that. You just can't. And honestly, if he would do it again, or he can't come back, or he would have got suspended, or he somehow's not himself mentally, and the Timberwolves win this series, and otherwise they wouldn't, his own fault. He can learn through it for the future of his career. But out of the West, though, it clearly right now is with the Knicks the favorite, or is. I mean,
so,
I guess we talked about it. Is it OKC or no?
You mentioned LeBron and how he's been refereed over the years. On the other side of that bracket, appears that he is headed to a defeat, won't win a game in this round if Oklahoma City completes
third sweep of his career, I believe.
Sweep.
Yeah. The two in the final. Oh no, this would be the fourth. Two in the finals, 07, and the last one with the Heat, and then, or no, the last one with Cleveland, and then Denver in 23. Those are his three sweeps so far.
I hate to take it straight to the existential question, but we do that well here.
Yeah.
Has he reached, I'm going to call it a ceiling, and I don't want to call it a ceiling, but like, is this like the best they can do with the Lakers? We've gone through multiple iterations. We've gone through Anthony.
Yeah, what iteration is the question first? I mean, LeBron might not even be on the team next year.
Yeah, so we'll get to that as part of this in a second. We the Luka thing, and it's just, I know the Lakers are the Lakers, and they can do much like the Dodgers, just kind of like if they want to spend money and assemble what they deem to be an all-star.
There's a salary cap, though, unfortunately, because they have new owners.
Salary cap and luxury tax has proven that
the Dodgers in the MLB.
Example A, the Knicks, who had to go and tear it down and do it through actual drafting and trades.
Yeah, with no cap, the Knicks would have won a bunch of titles. I mean, right. Yeah.
So it's a soft cap of the luxury thing, but again, you only have
you get penalized if you
restrict you to what you can do.
You not only that, but there's penalties, there's different things. I mean, even more than 10 years ago, you cannot just buy your championship now.
Correct.
You could argue
not saying, sorry to equate it to the Dodgers then. Yeah, not straight up buying, but like they can, if they want to make themselves into a different team, they can do it because they still have the cachet of being the Lakers.
Yeah, and now
people want to play for and
I mean, for people who don't follow the business side, the Buss family is no longer the majority owners of this franchise. They've actually sold to a richer person, because previously, during all their years, the Buss family was running it more as a small mom and pop that were in Los Angeles with stars, and they benefited through different things to have those stars be there. And as you're saying, people just wanted to play for the Lakers because of the history and in LA. But this is now a little bit about resources and money, that if there was no cap, the Lakers absolutely could buy a championship with the pockets that are there now. And even if not, they have an owner that likely would be willing to go into luxury tax when the Buss family could not do it. They didn't have the money. There's money now to do it. But aside from that, they have the built-in excuse, I guess I will add, George, that Luka did not play in this playoffs. Do you think any of this would be different if Luka was there, that they at least wouldn't get swept, they at least be more competitive? They did win the first round series, obviously without Luka. Now, again, Kevin Durant only played in one game, and he was not even effective. So that looked almost like
Luka probably gets them. Maybe it's 5 games against Oklahoma City, the defending.
Like, do you feel differently about the future of the franchise if you see Luka out there winning them a game? Obviously, OKC is the defending champ. I think that whether you have Luka or whether you have Magic Johnson there or Kobe reincarnated, you're going to figure OKC would win.
It's still just a weird. I think it's a weird assemblage. It's like.
Are you going towards the Austin Reeves and Luka can't fit together for the future because they're both too offensively inclined?
No,
there's an opinion out there.
I'm like Reeves is irrelevant to me. Rui Hachimura wasn't good in DC, and Ted Leonsis just drafted a bunch of.
I don't know how you cannot like Reeves. What did Reeves?
I don't like Rui. Rui's just takes up space.
No, Austin Reeves, not Rui. I'm saying, what did Austin Reeves do?
He didn't do nothing. It's just like, are we gonna? If I take away LeBron and Luka, and I'm just left with like the roster as a whole is just underwhelming.
Yeah, but nobody. I mean, my defense of Austin Reeves as his defense attorney here is when he entered the NBA, nobody thought he'd be the 6th best player on the team.
Oh, sure.
And instead, he's scoring 30 points.
He's
on
the 3rd best player on the team. Yeah.
But I mean, he has well exceeded.
No, it's good for him, but like he is not going to lead a team to the NBA Finals. It's kind of like
but he's not the leader of this team.
No, but like in an atmosphere where we remove LeBron, which we'll touch on in a second, and it's a Luka.
I mean, you could argue LeBron's been the 3rd best player, and Luka and Reeves is the 2nd.
Sure, okay, that's fair.
Season.
Sure, but like the presence of LeBron as the leader, right? Regardless of scoring wise, I remove him, and it's can Luka lead a team by himself like he did in Dallas again? Does he want that drive? Does he want that responsibility?
I think he wants it. He's in better shape now. He's acting like he wants it.
He's acting like he wants it. Obviously, we need to see the proof of it. But
I mean, he so before he got hurt,
yeah,
he was a top 5 MVP.
Yeah.
And he managed to get enough off the appeal and the games and all that to be in the first team All-NBA conversation. He had a great year. This is almost underrated a little bit. Luka had a better regular season individually this year than he did when Dallas dealt him. Mm-hmm. So you could argue that he's giving you as the Lakers, for example, like if you're George, the GM of the Lakers, you're figuring out what to do here. You could argue that Luka's giving you as much as you could possibly reasonably want. He's in better shape. He's not arguing with the referees as much, even though sometimes he does. That's just his personality. He's scoring the lights out. He was an MVP candidate. People are buying his jerseys. And he was better defensively this year than last year, year before, just for the simple fact that if you look at some film, he's trying. He's not good defensively, but he gives a damn. So what else could you ask from Luka if you're George Gerbo? Like, if you're basically saying that he needs to give you more than he's giving for them to win a title as presently constructed, that's probably not possible.
Not necessarily more on his part, but that's kind of like where, like, how does this roster look moving forward?
Yeah, are they building it around him properly?
With him as the centerpiece of it, right?
Yeah,
because Dallas did that in a sense, and then obviously had some level of success there with that. And then, of course, the seismic trade that changes, kind of the trajectory of the league in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, that was still nuts. But they went to the finals building a team around Luka. Yeah. And you could argue on paper, this is actually a better team than the finals team. I mean, he has LeBron's obviously a Hall of Famer, and he's still getting it done. And then Austin Reeves scoring 30 points so often this year. He didn't have that kind of offensive firepower. Kyrie was there, but outside of Kyrie, you could argue that Mavs team didn't have the star power, even though there was depth there, and they went to the finals. And Luka led them, but he wasn't as good defensively. He was kind of out of shape during that run, despite leading them there. Luka's obviously going to be there. So in all reality, even if you don't think he's good enough to win you a championship as the leader, he's going to be there. They're dug in with him. Once you make that trade and give him the new contract, he's your guy for the future. The question here is, and it's a twofold question.
No, it's just
I asked a little. Well, two questions before we get to LeBron. Do you think Austin Reeves, and it sounds like you don't, is worth paying way more money? Because he now is going to be a free agent. You cannot get him for this discount that you're getting him for now. But if you don't bring him back, you lose a lot of offense. That's actually, you could argue, a more important question than LeBron.
They may be forced to.
23rd, giving you only so much.
They may be forced to, because
I think they will be. What do you do if you don't? Who do you bring in?
In so much offensive production that he's done, you otherwise would be reaching for someone potentially on the free agent market to pay the same money to.
Yeah, or more.
This guy's already in-house, and his game. You don't have to worry about transitioning someone into
I'm talking 35, 40 million here, though, based on the market. He's going to ask for a lot. And I mean, Austin Reeves put up some freaking numbers here, George. Like, I didn't predict this either, and I don't think Austin Reeves is nearly a Hall of Famer or worthy of carrying a franchise. But Austin Reeves in the regular season, if I would read you numbers and say, who is this? And you didn't know who I'm talking about. He averaged 23.3 points, 4.7 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and his field goal percentage was 49%. That's a $40 million player in this day and age in the NBA.
100%.
So I don't see how. Now, maybe, as you're saying, maybe he would be more prone because maybe he knows I'm not really a Hall of Fame guy. I'm in a great system for me that caters to me. I don't want to leave. I'm getting in commercials. I'm on podcasts. I'm in LA. I'm with LeBron. I'm with Luka. If I all of a sudden takes the most money and go to Memphis because they're below the cap, I'm not a star anymore, probably. Maybe he will say, I'll stay for 35 instead of 40. Go ahead and give LeBron some money that's more than the minimum because you want to respect him. Bring him back. I love LeBron. Do something else to make us better. Maybe that's all possible. But if you tell Austin Reeves, I'm not paying you big money or a long-term deal, and he walks because someone will pay him, then the other guy you bring in who's an outsider is going to say it's $40 million at the minimum. Like for that production. And if you don't, even if you bring LeBron back and you do not bring Reeves back and it's Luka, LeBron, and then maybe ancillary parts, I don't see how you're better than this year's team. I think they might be forced to bring Reeves back. That's a lot for him.
Bringing him back.
He might not hit the contract like 3 years from now. That might not be a great deal. I don't know if Reeves is going to be this perennial all-star off of what these numbers show you, but that's the market now, and then that pivots. What do you think LeBron James does? Does he want to play? Does he want to be back in LA? Would he agree to the minimum money because he can't make $50 million under their cap anymore? Certainly they can't bring Reeves back if he gets $50 million. And if he does not get any of this from the Lakers, will he play elsewhere?
Unrestricted free agent at the end of this season. 24.
No option. They didn't want him to have a player option like he does every other time. That was the unique thing. The Lakers made it very clear you have no leverage here.
From all indications, his team and how they operate, Maverick Carter and Rich Paul and the guys from Akron and everything.
Yeah.
It'll be probably like a group-ish decision type of that.
I'm sure
he's obviously the first and foremost, he's still at 41, still physically good enough to play the game.
Oh yeah, he's very, very good. I mean, he's very, very good. He's no longer good enough to carry a team through a series when he's facing a better team, but he's very, very good. Yes,
sure. Would be year 24 in the league for him.
Yeah.
After being drafted in,
he missed a lot of games though. You're paying him for half a season basically at this age. And seeding is important. It is not a nothing thing. This is not LeBron in his prime.
Well, then if
I feel like if you're the Lakers, George, you have to be in a mentality every year, especially with Luka, not for LeBron, but you're trying to win a title for Luka. You have to try to win championships. So if you're bringing LeBron back and paying Reeves and you got Luka who doesn't play defense and you don't think that wins you a title, maybe you decide not to do it. Because what's the point if you go to the second round and lose every year? Their only championship with LeBron is the COVID year that he had 3 months off and nobody else wanted to be there. If you take away and I'm not saying it doesn't count, it counts. But if you take away the COVID season, that's 8 years and no other finals appearance for LeBron. That's very rare for his career. He's a great all-timer, Mount Rushmore player. You could argue whether he's the GOAT or not. But still with the Lakers, it's that 1 year where he won the COVID title and then a lot of disappointing postseasons. And I do think, as you have thought and many have said, that since winning the championship with AD and company in the bubble, they haven't built the team right. Russell Westbrook never fit there. He turned it over too damn much with LeBron, as I said on this show, ad nauseum and annoyance to you all through that year. It didn't make sense to bring in Melo when he was done, basically, and Dwight Howard at the second go-around after being a bench player. Now he has to get more minutes when he's older. That didn't make sense. Now they kind of are a little better built with Luka driving the ship, but they're not healthy enough. And I do think Reeves probably is not going to duplicate what he just did. So maybe you bring him back, but are you a better team? If this is the exact same team, then what's the point in all reality? You got to do this what's right for the Lakers, not LeBron.
I think he plays. So the question is it Los Angeles or the Field? I don't think there's a third go round in Cleveland, though.
I was going to say, is it the Field or is it Cleveland? Because
I don't think
well,
never say never, because the first time it happened, it was shocking, but I don't think there's a third go around in Cleveland.
Back.
I think he might go back to Miami before he goes back to Cleveland, but I don't think he fits in Miami's plan.
I don't think he can do Miami, because if you're Miami with Pat Riley still there, you need to be working out every day. You got to be in shape. I mean, he's in shape, but he's older.
Yeah.
I don't think Pat Riley would let him do what we'll get to at the back half of the show. I don't think Pat Riley would let him do the Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre show up late, the Roger Clemens, you play half a year because you're old.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to maybe he should, but I don't think he's going to let him do it. And then separate from that, I actually think Cleveland's more like, what's your percentage of Cleveland?
What's
your percentage of Cleveland?
That ended nicely in
is your percentage is 5 or 0?
Less than 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm willing to give Cleveland 15%.
Wow.
Now that's not that crazy, but here's the reason why. If you're LeBron James and the Lakers basically tell you, we'd like to go in a different direction, but we don't want to disrespect you, etc., maybe you make the decision of, how can I end my career because I want to play with better symmetry and on a better team that would take me than Cleveland. Now Cleveland has to decide on Donovan Mitchell and his money now, and of course James Harden's been promised all this cash, and if that happened, he would of course go in Nike and go to China and say everyone lied to him, and he'd be all mad. But because he got a promise for some money, and that would be lied to him.
Daryl.
But George, we just finished talking about
that man hates Daryl Morey.
Well, here's the thing: we just finished talking about how even if Cleveland beats Detroit, they're not built right to win a championship, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if that's the case, but we also probably agree that in the regular season, they're going to win 50 games most of these seasons. They're going to be in there. If you're LeBron, you don't think he could sit back and say, well, they're not a title team as they are. I'm still damn good. If I go there and they get over the hump, even if I'm the third best player, that adds to my legacy. It makes me God there times 10 instead of just God in general. And they are going to be a playoff team at least. It's not like I'm going to go there and just lose games. They're a better team than Miami. If you plug LeBron on Miami as is, they're worse than Cleveland as is with LeBron. I mean, when you think about it, a guy that can rebound, a guy that can be a leader, a guy that can lead them through these collapses they have. They almost need LeBron. Their problem is they don't have a leader.
So, there's that, but then also he's got a...
It's 50%. It's not 50%.
Yeah. The problem is, if it's Cleveland, he can't not be the figurehead. So
off the court, but not on the court. He's not a jerk like that. I don't
no clue how the Cavaliers would, the franchise organization would feel about it. They repaired the thing so well, won the title,
100%.
It ended perfectly fine. He left, like every 100%. Time he comes back, he gets cheered.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that him coming back would go bad, but it's just like they've actually put together this nice little.
Yeah, but it's a ceiling on it. It's a ceiling on it.
Yeah. So then,
and I will answer both of those two questions. That
can it be LeBron not solely like a Udonis Haslem role like UD had with the Heat, but can it be sort of where he's there, but he doesn't have to take all the playing time? Like I don't know, but it seems unlikely to me.
If LeBron plays.
Though I also can't think of another destination besides the place he's already played.
if LeBron plays, George. Knowing LeBron as we do, just as observers, we don't know him personally, of course, but just as observers, knowing LeBron as we do, growing up with the man, he's not going to play if he's only UD. He's not going to play if he's Juan Howard and literally getting multiple championships, playing no minutes, and just purely being a guy on the bus and in the plane and teaching people how to handle their money, and then you're a 2-time champion. Great. That's not LeBron. I don't think now, as much as LeBron, there's some ego there, there's some narcissistic tendencies there. I do think he's a little bit, self-absorbed more than he wants to let on. Things like that I do think exist, but they exist for a lot of legendary athletes. I don't think LeBron wants to do a thing where he gets this 5th ring by playing 20 games, barely playing the playoffs, where he's UD. I don't think he wants to do it that way. If that's what Cleveland offers him, I think he would turn it down.
Okay.
Because here's what I'll compare it to, and obviously they're not even close all time, but for another Hall of Famer, Carmelo Anthony has come out in recent years saying, people always said, why not 1 year for Melo? Why, now that the Knicks are really good, why did they never bring him on to just be on the bench and get a charity ring, etc.? The last few years it's been brought up. They even asked him on 7 p.m. in Brooklyn, and he said a couple years ago at the beginning of this, they did. They offered him a 15th man spot, thinking they were a really good team, and they would let him go through. Brunson and company wanted to give him the charity ring. They wanted to try to do it for Melo and all that. And Melo said, that wouldn't be a legit title. I don't want to do it that way. As of just a 15th man, you're not playing. I don't need to teach you how to be a professional on the team. Text me and I'll just do it as an ambassador for the franchise. I'm not going to take a spot from someone who actually deserves to get the NBA money and do it that way. I don't think LeBron would do it that way. I don't. So, and I think people in his ear would say this isn't good for your legacy. I think Melo would say, here's my example. Don't do it that way. I think Chris Paul would call him and say, don't do it that way. I don't think he'd even want to do it that way. But LeBron, unlike Melo, unlike Chris Paul, unlike Dwayne Wade and his posse, LeBron in year 23 is still an all-star caliber player. So if you're Cleveland, 22 if you're Cleveland, George, why would you call him and say that you got to be the 15th man? He right now would not be the worst player on that team. He'd probably be the third. He'd be the third best. He'd be behind James Harden and Donovan Mitchell right now. He was on that team today. And they'd be a better team. And you put him on that team today, I think they're beating Detroit. So I think they'd be better with him, of course. And it depends on what the team would look like around him. But I'm assuming he would get legit minutes, not the top tier minutes, but he would play. Maybe he would have some back-to-backs. He would sit out, but he would be the number 3 or 4 guy on a team where I think he wouldn't play. So I guess asking it that way, if we are assuming LeBron James is going to be at minimum the third best player on a team, do you think he still plays? I don't think he would take the role where he's an ambassador.
No, like I'm trying to, and it's like the closest thing because he's not ring chasing, right? But he's still very competitive.
Yeah, because the Jordan thing is done. He's not getting 6.
Yeah.
That's done.
And he's not pride, I don't think he plays like that. And then I'm thinking, like, it's not the Stanley Cup thing where, like, journeyman player or Hall of Fame player goes and ends up, Ray Bork obviously comes to mind, Colorado, finally got his Stanley Cup ring after all those years in Boston. It's nothing like that. So, like,
because you get your name on the cup at least and all that.
To use the NBA thing, it's not, Gary Payton.
Right.
So
like he barely played. He was a bench player. That didn't make his career better to me as an observer. It was great he got a ring, but it bowed it up, but it didn't make him a better all-time point guard. And if LeBron wins another ring as a bench player, it won't help him. But if he wins a ring as a top 3 player, that might help his legacy. I think he still thinks he can be a top 3 player on a good team. And George, if you were handicapping it right now on who's a better team, if LeBron really cares about another ring, I could even argue Cleveland has a better shot than the Lakers. You're not getting through the Spurs and OKC and how deep the West is, or Denver or Minnesota. The East is wide the hell open. If you put LeBron on the Cavs, they can get through the East now.
It kind of like narrows to.
You might be better off in Cleveland.
To like a viable place that he's pretty much, you can rule out anybody that wasn't in the playoff field this year as a place that he would go. Like he wouldn't show up in DC.
I have a breakdown for you of what I think LeBron will do. Here's my breakdown. I gave you 15% Cleveland.
Yeah.
I will go 15% Cleveland. Then I will go 5% retires, and I don't think he will. I don't think he will. But the reason why I'm leaving it as 5% and not 0, there are people in his inner circle that have said he does not want a farewell tour, and don't be surprised if he would just retire. And the reason why I give it 5%, George, as we're talking right now, it's hard to find a team for him.
Yes.
So this is why. If the Lakers come to him and say, the only way and this is possible because of the cap and because of the they may say, we want you back in general, But we do want Reeves back and Luka, obviously, more. It is centered around them, which you already know. And LeBron, to his credit, took the back seat as a third guy this year. But we cannot get Reeves in his 20s for low money dollars. We got to give him $40 million or he will leave. Meaning, LeBron, for you to come back, despite being a Mount Rushmore player, you have to take literally like $3 million or something very low. If you don't want to, because that would be a big ego hit, we would prefer you to either choose to go elsewhere or retire because we don't have room.
Yeah.
And the team wouldn't be a title team regardless. And if that is said to LeBron, I do actually believe his people will, I'm not saying it'll happen, but I do believe his people would then, if that is said, because I actually believe LeBron, as we stand right now, I believe LeBron James in his mind, if he already had decided that he wants to play, that he would prefer to stay with the Lakers. His wife's there. His family's there. Bronny's there. He's in movies and TV. He's on podcasts.
There's a lot of roots now in Los Angeles.
He's doing the Mind the Game show. It's obviously, it's not virtual like we're doing here. They're on location. It's all in LA. Like, if he would move to Cleveland, he'd be in an airplane every day. I think he would prefer to do one more year, just one, with the Lakers, finish out all these damn records and extend them, have the longevity title that no one can ever dominate and ever get over, maybe have a farewell tour, even if he really doesn't want one. We'll see how the team looks, etc. Do it one more time and prove yourself. Doesn't play back-to-backs. I think that's in his heart of hearts. LeBron wants to do that one more time with the Lakers and then hand the baton to Luka to have it be his era and whatever. And even if they win a title with Luka after he leaves, he can say he taught Luka the way, and he'll give himself some credit that way and some ego boost in that regard. But if he gets word from the Lakers that either we don't want you back or we're only going to pay you a very low amount because, again, of the apron rules, which I think is very possible, they're not going to want to pay him that much, then I think he would legit, him and his camp, maybe not him, but his camp, would put feelers out to the Cavaliers. I do believe they would put feelers out and at least ask, would you want him? How would it look? What would the money be? And if he hears anything of, I do believe the answer from Cleveland, you kind of were asking, if LeBron James or his camp or Rich Paul calls the Cavs and said, LeBron wants to play one more year, the Lakers do not want him, he wants to play. Your thoughts? I think Cleveland would take him every second of the day, 100%. There's no way they would say no. And I don't think so. I think they would say, we obviously do. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell or whoever else has to be the focal point of the offense. You're a billion years old, but I think we do want you. No, it wouldn't be a 15th man role. We're going to have you play as much as you want to play. We only have so much money to give you, though. No, wherever it is, you can't take for $50 million is gone. But I think they would want him, and I think the fans would love it and would take him back in a heartbeat. He won them a title. If it was after he never won them a championship in 2010 and all that, and they never won, and they were still cursed, yeah, they might be bitter. But once he won in 2016, it's all gravy. None of those Cleveland fans that you or I know give a damn that he left before because he won him a championship. I think that championship has smoothed all that over, whether it's shit or not. So, I mean, it literally looks like it looks like you're in a relationship, you get cheated on, and then you all of a sudden marry that person, and you just forget about getting cheated on years ago. That's what it is. But I think that they have forgot about it because now they're in a great marriage with some kids. That's really what it is if you're a Cleveland fan. The fans would take him back. The franchise would take him back. Dan Gilbert will get the same message he got from Rich Paul before, that, look, we're going to come back and do this for you. You can, make some money, Dan Gilbert, but stay out of our way, and we're not going to have dinner with you. It'll be that again what it was before. But if he does not want to take the low money or does not want to go to Cleveland because he wants to be in the West Coast and the Lakers tell him they won't take him, then I'm leaving the 5% that he would just say, look, it was Cleveland or LA for me. Both those two places do not really want me. They're not going to embarrass me by saying no publicly. I'm going to choose to retire. And that'll be the message. He'll do a damn essay. It'll be in the Players Tribune or Sports Illustrated, whatever's left of SI. That'll be kind of what he'll do. He won't give it to ESPN because he hates Stephen A. Smith, etc. Maybe he'll do his own thing and release something on social. But I think there's 5% because if you're sitting here saying you don't think he fits with the Lakers or the Cavs over the long term, then he might just retire.
I think it's a non-zero chance for me that it's kind of like I don't have
and the rest of it out of the 15
and
5 is
like 40%
is
Lakers. I still say 5% Cavaliers, but I think there's maybe like a fifth chance, 20%, 25% chance that he's content with moving on.
Yeah, I mean, aside from winning another title, I don't see what else there really is to do. He has the all-time points record. He has all these most playoff games. Yeah, assist totals up there in the top 5. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, longevity-wise, there's no one that even touches them, including Kareem. So, I think there's a chance he retires, even though no one's banking on that right now. I think if I had to bet money, gun to my head, he's back with the Lakers on a short-term, 1 year, no option, low money. He does agree to that. That's if I had to bet. I think he will agree to little money for 1 more year, and then that'll be it. And it'll be Luka's team with him there for 1 more year. And neither Luka or Reeves will have the balls to say they don't want him back. So he'll be back for 1 more year. And then in 2 years, you'll get to see what you're asking of. Can you really build it around Luka? I don't think we're going to know next year. I think he'll be back for 1 more year, or it'll be Cleveland, or it'll be retired. I don't see another team. I don't see Miami. I think it's Lakers, Cleveland, or retired. And in the order of Lakers, retired, then Cleveland. But I think Cleveland's not a 0%, and I think retire's not a 0%. Okay. And I think he'd have to agree to a lot less money for the Lakers, and I don't know if his ego can handle it. There's an ego there, despite how great he is.
There certainly is. Let's take a quick timeout. When we come back, we'll talk the other playoffs going on right now, the NHL with its own interesting storylines and sweeps to cover. That's next. You're on the Howitzer and Buzzsaw Show.
I can hear your TV personally.
Oh, shoot.
I don't know if everyone can hear your TV, but I can hear the TV a little bit in the background. I didn't hear it. It almost sounded like you turned it up because I didn't hear it the whole show.
I might have leaned on the remote here. There we go. Okay. Because it was down, and then I'm like, what's happening?
All right, I can just keep going if you're
Yeah. Let's do it. Welcome back inside the Howitzer Buzzsaw Show. George the Howitzer Gerbo.
Mike the Buzzsaw Asti.
In the NHL, we got a couple of teams that look like wagons, and then a couple of teams that were wagons that have now run into some challenges.
Sure.
We'll once again start in the Eastern Conference, where we've got another decided result already, and that is the other Philadelphia defeat, this time to the hands of the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah. Not as embarrassing because the Flyers really shouldn't have been there at all, and they did beat the Penguins. But
Carolina Hurricanes, excuse me, Panthers. One day maybe we'll catch up. But the Canes are wagon.
Yeah,
they have won all 8 of their games in these playoffs. The first time a team has done that since 1987 Edmonton Oilers, who went on to win the Stanley Cup, and the last 2 teams prior to win the first 8 games of their playoffs in the NHL have gone on to win the Stanley Cup. And so
they didn't even trail for the first 5 games. I mean, that's insane.
A lot of momentum, and kind of like the Knicks, this could set up well for Carolina, depending on.
Yeah, I mean, the Knicks no longer have the Pacers around, and the Caves no longer have Florida around, and
you've got Montreal and Buffalo on the other side. Buffalo, of course, making their first appearance in 2 decades in the playoffs, and looked strong and break down all the doors. And then here comes Montreal, who has played incredibly fast, incredibly crisp.
What did I say when we did the show a month ago? And I've been saying it on the Locked On postgame shows too. Montreal is the most underrated team of the entire postseason.
Yeah.
I've been saying it for a long time. They're very, very deep. They are proving it now. I don't think they're going to go ahead and win a cup, but there's nobody outside of me that had them in the ECF. And right now, I don't think it's an argument. They're in the driver's seat, frankly. Yes. I mean, it looks like they have the better goaltender. Buffalo is absolutely a wagon, but Lindy Ruff even said it. it looks like we underestimated them early in the series. And if you do that to that team, you're going to lose. We could lose. That looks like right now is what could happen. And like in the NBA, you're going to have a team that is going to be off for freaking almost 2 damn weeks because you're going to be in a dogfight to even get there.
Mm-hmm. The Habs have relied on great scoring, guys like Yurov Slavkovsky, former number 1 overall pick.
Nick Suzuki.
They have captured the imagination and reignited all of Quebec in what just the absolute scenes that they're going there. Dobas is just been standing on his head as a goaltender nobody has heard of before, and is making a name for himself in these playoffs. And it's been a fun thing to watch.
And it's cool for Montreal because when they went to that Cup final a few years ago against Tampa in the weird COVID year, you didn't get to do this as a fan. You didn't get to do this as a fan. So this is the first time in a long time the fan base gets to do this, even though they've had good teams.
Yeah. 93, of course, they still carry the last Canadian team to have won a Stanley Cup, and they'll try against the Sabres, Mike, who Lindy Ruff is likely the coach of the year, the Jack Adams Award winner once again in the NHL. And
probably, I mean, I got to say Cooper winning that just to give him a career achievement award, but I'd probably vote for Ruff. But likely his Tage Thompson still comes in quick scoring, scores 22 seconds into the first game in Montreal and silences the crowd a little bit, and then the Canadians run away with it at a 6-2 clip in the end. Though. Montreal's playing like a team that's been there and done it before, and they haven't with this group.
I like that we've got kind of these wagony type of series where teams can score, because we always talk so much about goaltenders, and yes, these goaltenders are making these key saves. The Colorado-Minnesota series is another one on the other side, where the goals are like, shooting gallery style. I think that makes for a fun playoff with unfortunate consequences for goaltenders. But,
I mean, it does, but I mean the Stanley Cup playoffs are also known for goalies standing on their head, and we're not getting enough of it, I could argue.
Yes, but I'm saying I like that.
I like it, but
I think it'll even itself out by the time we get.
That's what I'm saying. I'd like it to even itself out, but I guess we're 2 rounds in here, and it's not evened itself out yet.
It's not yet even itself out.
I'd prefer it to have evened out a little bit more to this point. I mean, we're talking 5-3 is like a low-scoring game right now, but. Yeah, I mean, I think Montreal right now, if you're talking about depth in scoring, depth on defense, the best overall defensive player, and the better goaltender, check right now on Montreal. Yes. Right now. I mean, it could switch up, and there are great players in Buffalo and Lindy Ruff. Yeah, obviously have to give Lindy Ruff the head coaching edge. He's been doing it since back when Martin St. Louis was a freaking player. But Martin St. Louis feels like he's maybe going to be the, Steve Kerr of the NHL here and be this great coach with this great franchise and build him up, because he has them playing hard for him. He said, and nothing phases him. That's why nothing phases the team. Mm-hmm. He beat Tampa, obviously the team he played for and won a cup with, and people were asking him every game, is this hard for you? And he literally said, no. After the games, I go home and watch Seinfeld and detach. And then he went on, if you listen to the clip, and talked about why he likes Seinfeld, and it's a show about nothing, etc. He talked about Seinfeld for 3.5 minutes in the middle of a series against his former team. And then after beating them, he didn't talk about how it's emotional to beat them. He just did the Wolf of Wall Street. Like, I feel like everything about Montreal really screams like a team that is ready to do this, even though this group hasn't done it. And Buffalo kind of gives me a vibe of very, very good, but maybe not ready yet to go the distance, even though it's been a while. And sorry for Buffalo fans, I don't think your window's as long as you may think it is if you look at some of those contracts. Unlike Minnesota, who has all these players locked up for years as they're about to get eliminated here against Colorado, Buffalo is going to need to do some work as a general manager to keep this team together in terms of the contracts. But they're very, very good. They could certainly win. I'll ask you this, because it's a coin flip, Buffalo, Montreal right now. I don't think we'd be surprised with either result of either team winning that series. But which one of those two teams gives Carolina a better series and maybe could even beat Carolina? Because Carolina's there now. Carolina's obviously a great offensive team. You have veterans who've done it before in Jordan Stahl and company. But And Rob Brendamore has even led teams that far. He's led teams to this point before. He's done it as a player too. They have everything you would want, but they do have a question mark in net. Anderson's been great so far. In the regular season. They had Anderson and Bussey as their 1-2, and both of them were sub 900 in a save percent. This is not the 1980s. They were in the 800s. They were not really that great, but they were winning games 6-5. Can they do that all the way to a Stanley Cup is a question mark. Anderson's been really good in this postseason. Does that eventually, where he comes back down to earth and dissipate? But which one of those two between Buffalo and Montreal is a better opponent?
Yeah, Philadelphia had a couple of those games, including the overtime one there, where you thought, here's a glimmer of hope if you're a Flyers fan. But
Anderson was not good until this play. I mean, it's hard for me to believe he's going to do it for 4 rounds. And
can you overcome it with Stankoven, who's just playing out of his mind, and guys that are able to in the same way we talked in basketball.
Well, what's even the leash either? I mean, Brandon Bussey won you 30 games. When does he come in?
Yeah.
But which one of those two?
Yeah, I'm less worried about Carolina. I think Buffalo gives them the better matchup. I do.
Okay.
But man, then we get back to this here, who's the team that's on a roll, and it really is Montreal at this point. We've gotten more personality out of Martin St. Louis in these playoffs in this run than we did in his 20-year playing career in Tampa I mean, it's very refreshing. He talked, lost his mother during his playing career, and he talked about that in the lead up here to Mother's Day.
Some thought he was a jerk. If you remember, him and Yzerman were at odds.
No,
Yzerman was forced. He left Tampa Bay because Yzerman literally said, "I was forced to move a player I didn't want to move because he didn't like me. They couldn't get along. He went to the Rangers because he wanted out of there. Tampa Bay fans love him now, but they forget he wanted out of there and did not like what they were doing and was a little bit of a malcontent in those final seasons when they were clearly building. It almost felt like they were building to what would become the dynasty, and he didn't want to give up the reins of this is my team. And they had to move him.
Sure. But he's been humanized in such a way. The Seinfeld thing, as you mentioned, it's just
he's very relaxed now.
Yeah. And energy and what he's done behind their bench can't go unnoticed. Nick Suzuki as well, who had a good run at the Olympics, comes back and kind of gets the bump and buoys this team to leads them into the playoffs. So I feel like it could run out at some point for them. I think Buffalo in the long run in the 7-game series will be borne out as the better team, but I'm happy to be wrong on that because it's just been such a fun story.
But why is that? Is that because you think Dobas will eventually calm down as someone who's not?
Yeah, at some point I think
he's arguably giving you those saves that we're looking for.
In the same way that the Penguins got to Dan Vladar, but they got to Dan Vladar too late in their series. I think that Buffalo can get to Dobas. It just you love the energy of a young unheralded goaltender, doing his thing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But I think Buffalo will get those shots to go in at some point if they can keep the pivotal, before pivotal game 5.
Yeah, Montreal's the team that won a game 7 with 9 shots. So if between the two teams, obviously Buffalo is more likely to just pepper the net. Granted, early on in this series, Buffalo was getting outshot, as ironic as that is. So Montreal went from 9 shots to 28 from game 7 to game 1. They've shown they can also shoot the puck. And granted, maybe that Tampa Bay series is more of the aberration. If Montreal loses, it's likely that Dobas gets exposed and the Lions better. But I got question marks on Buffalo's net too. So is it for you that no matter what happens, the Carolina Hurricanes are going to the Stanley Cup final? Are they beating either team?
Yeah. Yes.
What would be why if I get into the future and tell you that Carolina does not go to the Cup final? Is it simply that Anderson or Bussey sucks?
Yeah, because that Anderson over the life of his career has had fits and starts of showing you, okay, I can do this at a high level, but he doesn't
he's a career backup.
He's
a career backup. This would be nuts. He's a career backup.
Yeah.
How many career backups have a ring?
It's the glaring hole in their roster. Otherwise, is the goaltending piece.
And then because you're in the conference final, but Anderson's been so good so far against weaker teams. What type of leash does he have? You have a guy that won you a lot of games in the regular season. Granted, he also had a low save percentage. He is a young goaltender that, despite being in his late 20s, he's never done this before in Brandon Bussey. Mm-hmm. If Anderson would lose game 1 after you have not lost, would that be enough to think about changing the goaltender if you give up a lot of goals? What is the leash here? Your goal is
some Edmonton level-ish, but it wouldn't surprise me if they...
Yeah, but this is the issue. You compared him to the Knicks. I think the comparison's actually fair to your credit because the pressure... Now, obviously, Carolina market's less than the New York market with media attention. Sure. But if you're Carolina and you've been so good and so dominant, historically speaking, like the Knicks in the NBA, and you look at the landscape of what we're saying and those weaknesses despite Montreal and Buffalo being good teams, if you are Carolina and you do not get to the Cup final, that is not successful, right? That's a not successful season, correct?
Mm-hmm. They need to win the Eastern.
So I don't know if you can afford to drop a couple games because you want to be loyal to a goaltender that was great to this point. I think you might have a quick leash. I would wonder what that would look like.
Man, if they get 8-0 and they lose the first game, you're going to pull them. But
I added the caveat: what if it's 5-4, and what if there's a lot of goals that he allows in? What if he loses 5-2? Like Montreal and Buffalo can score goals. This is not going to be Philadelphia. That's a difference. When the Flyers won, even going back to the beginning of the Penguins series, the Flyers would win games 3-2. They would make it so the Penguins couldn't get shots off, and they were too old and slow, and the Flyers were faster. The Flyers looked faster than the Penguins and slower than Carolina. Mm-hmm. So what if Carolina's just facing a better team and exposes them?
I'm curious.
Could it be that Philadelphia is just a little bit overrated, or they got through a series against Pittsburgh, but they couldn't beat anybody else? I mean, Carolina's been great, but was their road as tough as what if Montreal gets there, their road is not as tough.
Montreal, and I didn't want to like that. This as I was kind of looking.
The damn format has the damn format could help Carolina here. I'm not going to say the ring wouldn't count, George, but if Carolina would get to the Cup final, you can say the format helps them.
They get audit. So in this weird division thing that we talked about, that Gary Bettman likes to say
last show we went in on
the best first round in sports. Okay, so they get
best first round, best second round, worst conference final in sports.
Yeah,
you don't want that, but that's
they get Ottawa because the rest of the teams in Carolina's division, the Metro, were so good that they all played each other, and so.
And they get Ottawa because Detroit literally went 9-20,
and because Detroit fell out of the bottom.
They had an insane collapse. They were only the third team ever to win to have 60 plus at that January, and then
so they get Ottawa. Ottawa really never deserved to be there. Not deserve, but like Ottawa. Thank you for playing.
I mean, if you look at the overall season, Detroit was better than them until March.
Those other teams also would have. Washington, if they were to crawl their way in, the Islanders.
I mean, Washington wasn't that good, but the Islanders might have been a better team.
I would take Washington and the Islanders in a pseudo NHL play-in 5-game series against Ottawa.
I would take the Islanders. I don't know about Washington.
Okay, fair enough. So
I would take I think the Islanders the Islanders would have won a game against Carolina. I think the Islanders might have been able to win a game. With Schaefer and company and what maybe happens in their net. So I think the Islanders might have won a game. The Islanders and Detroit both were better teams than Ottawa most of the season.
And so we get to round 2, and Philadelphia losing in 4 games was the easiest pick. I figured it'd be 4 or 5 games, and it ended up being 4 games. Yeah. And that's not, I'll lay my bias open here, not to say that the Penguins would have beat them, but I think Pittsburgh gets it to 6 games.
I think they might have won a game. I don't know about 6. I think they would have won at least 1.
5 or 6, I don't know, but I think Pittsburgh would have won a game or 2.
Yeah, tell the Penguins to show up before game 4 of the series. I mean, 100%.
Therein lies the problem.
If the Penguins would have played the Flyers in a 9-game series, the Penguins would have probably won the series. Unfortunately, it's a 7-game series, and they didn't show up until game 3 at the end. And even Crosby's comments, as great as he is, saying, well, I clearly saw, he kind of was like, oh, well, to paraphrase, we saw that in game 3 we could hang with them, and I think we were playing equal with them from game 3 on. The series starts in game 1.
And then in game 3 they blamed the officiating, and it's like, no, it was like you guys got sucked into their trap, and the trap.
Not as much in game 3, I guess, to what he was saying. Like in game 1 and 2, including Crosby, talk about a Wemby elbow. Crosby throwing elbows. He's lucky he didn't get kicked out because of stupid Flyers bullshit. And then in game 3, they got away from it. They stopped feeding into it. And then it looked like once the Penguins stopped feeding into things, it looked like a closer series, and Matrone and company couldn't just get open and do whatever they wanted. But the Flyers' speed in their youth did not, as great as they looked against the Penguins, they looked like they couldn't hang with Carolina. Maybe the Penguins would have gave them a game, but George, to be fair here, and I'm in Pittsburgh too, and if the Penguins would have got out of the Flyers series, and then they would have maybe even got out of the Carolina series and won that in 7, or if they would have taken that to 6 games or whatever, you could still argue that's because of the format.
Yeah.
I mean, Buffalo and Montreal, and even Tampa to a lesser extent because they lost, they're getting screwed by the format, and Buffalo and Montreal in particular having to play each other. I mean, what would the Penguins would have been the equivalent of, a 7 seed or a 6? So they wouldn't have played the Flyers in the first round. The Flyers barely got in the damn playoffs.
Correct.
The Penguins should have played freaking Buffalo.
Yes, except they overperformed and then leaped up to the second seed in the Pittsburgh was the second number 2 finishing team in the Metropolitan Division behind Carolina.
Right.
So based on the league structure in their division bracket there, in theory, Carolina.
Well, the whole division, but what I'm talking about I'm saying in the old NHL playoff format.
Oh, in the old 1v8, 2v7.
That's what I'm saying. No, that's what it should be, is what I'm saying. Forget the whole division thing sucks no matter how you do it. I'm against it all. I'm saying what it should be is 1 plays 8, 2 plays 7, 3 plays 6, 4 plays 5. It doesn't take rocket science to figure this out. I'm saying if you did that, then the Penguins wouldn't have played Philadelphia. And you could argue, I guess the question in general originally was, if you had the 1v8, does Carolina win the cup? I don't know. I mean, because they have a harder road. That's what I'm saying. The format, if you have a 1v8, George, Buffalo and Montreal are not playing each other in the second round.
Yeah, I'm just trying. I'm basically
to the credit, Minnesota's getting screwed too. Minnesota is. If I would tell you who's the second best team in the West, Minnesota's the second best team.
Yeah,
you're not as good as Colorado, but they're
Carolina beat Tampa. That's interesting, right? Carolina, if they played Montreal, that's interesting, right?
But Tampa Bay certainly doesn't get swept, though.
Yeah, correct.
Montreal doesn't get swept.
So
Buffalo doesn't get swept.
Yeah, it's the way it's set up in that bottom chunk of the bracket that the NHL has did benefit Carolina.
Hell, if you look at the regular season game, Detroit might have won a game. The only teams they would have swept were Ottawa and Philadelphia. Like that's who they would have swept, and they did sweep. So I asked about the Knicks. You could argue as great as Carolina's been, and they've been a wagon. Maybe they're a little fool's gold because they're going to have a conference final with a team that is way more on their equal. Way more on their equal. I'm willing to bet the house they're not going to sweep Buffalo or Montreal.
No.
They may win the series, but they're not going to sweep. And again, we will see what would happen. But is it fair to say, as we pivot then to the West, is it fair to say that Minnesota is getting jobbed by the format too, and that they aren't as good as Colorado, but they would beat Vegas or Utah?
It's an arduous
or Anaheim or Edmonton, and now obviously it's Anaheim and Vegas and the other side. But I do think that Minnesota would beat Vegas or Anaheim. Maybe defensively they're better. Offensively they're equal. Goaltending-wise, a question. Same damn thing with Anaheim, and even lesser offensively for Vegas. But I think Minnesota would be beating those two teams, and now they're in trouble against the Avalanche.
Yeah, Colorado a wagon. On the west side, there's part of me just want to ask you, is it just going to be Carolina and Colorado? But we'll get to the bottom portion of the bracket there in a second. Good job in Minnesota. They kind of felt like they were behind the 8 ball. They have to generate more of their chances than Colorado. The scoring seems to come very naturally to Colorado. Minnesota's got to do a lot of puck movement. They got a lot of
They scored the first goal and still lose by 3. And I actually do think they shouldn't have switched the goaltender after the game 1. I know that they lost and gave up all those goals. They gave 8 goals, and it was 9 off an empty netter. Yeah. But I mean, both teams gave a lot of goals. Game 2 was the worst effort, and it was when they switched goaltenders. They went back and they're still down. They would lose anyway. Colorado's just way better. But again, and I'll ask, if Minnesota was playing Vegas or Anaheim, what would the series look like?
It's not any better if they're playing Vegas, honestly, because Vegas is doing. We'll get the Knights here in a second.
I don't know. I mean, Vegas was so off and on that they fired a coach a month.
To your point, that was the more interesting, weaker side there, where Mammoth against Vegas in the first round, the Ducks and the Oilers in the first round. We've got Ducks and Knights now.
Yeah, bottom Edmonton
half.
ran out of gas.
Good on Minnesota. Kirill Kaprizov's been awesome. Hughes has been great. Quinn, but it's just Colorado is Colorado. They've, in my opinion, they've been, even though they've not. It's been Edmonton the last 2 years. Colorado's been the dominant, like, regular season force in the NHL. They're backing it up in the Western Conference in the NHL.
I think Landeskog back. He was on the Cup team, but hasn't been there for a while. So, I mean, adding him is a gigantic addition.
He's back. Cale Makar, who might be the best defenseman in the league. Obviously, Nate McKinnon took a puck to the face in Game 3, and
McKinnon didn't even do much in the first round series. He had an empty net goal. They struggled.
McKinnon took a puck to the face from a teammate in Game 4 and survived and came back and ended up scoring one of the empty netters to help seal it for Colorado. So
McKinnon's adding a little bit too. He's stat padding with some empty net goals. He's not. I mean, he's not been leading the way. You could argue he was better in 22 when they won the Cup. He's not having.
As it is of now. Yeah, they're more of a.
They're an overall group,
overall well-balanced, team.
They don't need him to do what he did before. But, correct. I mean, if you look at the other side of the bracket, Edmonton ran out of gas. If you listen to Draisaitl and McDavid, they didn't even – as I said at the time, they didn't seem like they cared as much. The care wasn't there. Even at the end of that, for them to get that to 6 was nuts. Like, they did not seem like the care was there. And Anaheim defensively has problems, but offensively, Edmonton doesn't have an answer in goal. Both goaltenders were not enough. And McDavid – wasn't healthy. He was not 100%. Draisaitl looked like he wasn't 100% either, and they just weren't able to be effective. So that moves Anaheim on. But Anaheim's going to have a ceiling. Utah is happy to be there in a way. Vegas is finally playing like they should have played all year. They got Bruce Cassidy fired, and maybe John Tortorella gets himself not only a new contract, but maybe gets himself to a Cup final again. But I do think that Colorado is going to still beat Vegas pretty handily.
I don't think it says I still Colorado heavy favorite, right? But I think it's a little more even. That man, Mitch Marner is playing amazing. He's like your leading Conn Smythe candidate at this point, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
Especially after the hat trick. I still, when they show John Tortorella behind the bench, it is still like jarring to me because I just don't expect him to be there.
He literally is on a tryout. He doesn't even have a deal for next year.
They show John Tortorella. It's like, what is he doing here? And Bruce Cassidy, meanwhile, is in Atlanta on the TNT broadcast, and it's like, what are we doing? None of this makes sense. You're not Peter DeBoer. You're not Bruce Cassidy. You're John Tortorella. You're supposed to be in Philly or New York or somewhere else, and it's wild. I mean, good for him. Are you
going to argue that if they win the Cup, him, Cassidy, and Tortorella got a share ring? Like they don't.
I mean, this is a Mike Asti question. I feel like the guy that led led them during the bulk of the overall majority of the season into the playoffs.
Yeah, but the reason why this would be
to get his name on the Cup.
Well, officially, if you coach the playoffs, you would. But I mean, the reason why this would be legit for me if Tortorella would do this, they were fading out. They were not this good under Bruce Cassidy. A couple years ago when they won the Cup and Cassidy led them in 23, yes, they were. Bruce Cassidy is a great coach, and I don't think it was fair to answer it this way. I don't think it was fair to fire Bruce Cassidy when they did. I think he's a great coach. He just won them a Cup recently. For an expansion franchise, they have this mentality that if they don't win the Cup every year, they got to fire everybody. It's a little ridiculous. I don't think it was legit to fire him, but the team was not playing as well. They weren't getting anything near what they've been getting recently in net, and they're now playing a little harder for John Tortorella. I'm not saying they like him more, but there's a difference. They're playing better. They're playing like they did a couple years ago, and even hard in net. You have to give John Tortorella credit in this regard. Pretty much every other coach probably would have switched up the goaltending in the first series, and he stuck to his guy and said he's going to play out of it. He literally said, to paraphrase, I've only known him for 2 weeks, but I trust him to play out of it. That's what's funny. If you talk about a charity ring for Tortorella, I've only known the man for 2 weeks, but No, if I had to equate this for sports history, which you really got to dip into the well, and I'll dip into college basketball for anybody if they really want to get into the weeds with me, this would be similar to Michigan's 1989 national title before the Fab Five. Steve Fisher only coached as the head coach in the NCAA tournament. They had a coach them all the way through the regular season and then choose to leave for a new deal next year, and then was told to get out now because you're not a Michigan man type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He then left. He went to Arizona State, if I remember correctly. And then Steve Fisher came in, coached that team with Glenn Rice and company through the NCAA tournament. They won the national title. It's Steve Fisher's only. It was Michigan's only prior to winning this year with Dusty May as far as basketball. And they credit Steve Fisher as the national championship head coach. And they actually do have the thing on their, on their site and all that, he's the postseason coach and another guy was the regular season coach. Maybe you can designate it that way. It'd be similar to that. But Tortorella did coach the final games of the regular season. I think they went on that 7-0 heater. They've been way better under him.
Yes.
This year, not last year. It's a
large indictment, unfortunately, on Bruce Cassidy.
I don't know if it's his fault, but they just weren't playing as well under him. And but I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think Colorado's going to beat them. I cannot see them beating Colorado. I mean, a close series.
Carter Hart.
Maybe they can get it to 6 games, but I think Colorado would still win in 5.
A lot of it will come on Carter Hart. The Colorado has what I call the Woods, Wedgwood and Blackwood. They got to come up with a better name than just the Woods, but I like the Woods in goal. And then Carter Hart for Vegas.
But I imagine it's Wedgwood still, though. I don't think they're changing up goaltending.
Yeah. 93% save percent, 93.5 save percentage for Carter Hart in the first 2 games of the series. Vegas.
But just a week ago, he was sucking, though. So I feel like he's more likely to switch it back than Wedgwood.
I know.
Who had one bad game
and that could be Anaheim. The youth of Anaheim, you can see the promise in guys like Seneca and Gauthier.
Yeah, they're a year too. They're a year early. Like no one thought they would even do this.
Vegas is so balanced across the roster. Obviously, you got the old vets like Stone, Theodore, McNabb, but like Pavel Dorofeyev is like that guy. Every time I look up, he's around the puck and he makes his presence felt. Jack Eichel, of course, can't forget about him.
Yeah.
It's such a good balanced roster. I guess the key is will Carter Hart, when faced with a much tougher shooting gallery, if it is Colorado in the next round, will he be up to the challenge there?
Yeah, I mean, it was a balanced roster when they fired Bruce Cassidy. I mean, these guys didn't just join the team yesterday. They've been on the team all year, and they just weren't playing like this. Now, Colorado's been a wagon all year. They had some peaks and valleys, but they've been the President's Trophy winner. Now, obviously, the President's Trophy does not guarantee going to the Cup final in the NHL. It's not happened a lot. But this Colorado team, it just seems like it lines up for them. Minnesota's the second best team in the conference, and they're mopping the floor with them in round 2. I would imagine, unless Hart steals games, I don't even just mean plays well, but steals games, stands on his head, I think Colorado will still win that handily. I don't think they're going to sweep them, but I think they're going to have multiple games they win by multiple goals, maybe win it in 5, and at worst win it in 6. I don't think this is going 7, and I don't think they're going to really be worried about it that much. Colorado's clearly the better team. We likely are in for a collision course between Colorado and Carolina. Maybe. For me, if I had to pick, though, it's more likely that Carolina gets tripped up than Colorado between the two.
Yeah, I'm willing to agree there. It goes back to Anderson a lot on their part, and that Colorado.
I think there's a chance Brandon Bussi will play at some point if Anderson gets tripped up. But yeah.
All right, I'm going to let you wrap it up here with.
I was going to say we're going to have to mention the bane of the existence of the city of Pittsburgh, really, Steeler Nation, and previously the Jets and Packers.
Aaron Rodgers, and we will give a nod of the cap here to friend of the program, Adam Crowley, who on 93.7 The Fan morning show that he hosts in Pittsburgh reported that Rodgers was going to be in town in the city this weekend, in the Pittsburgh area this weekend, and the expectation is that he was there to sign.
him and Doran Dickerson, which unfortunately that reporting has ended up not coming to fruition.
And so Jerry Dulac backs up that he was in town this weekend. His agent was in town this weekend as well. The expectation did not come to fruition that he was going to sign this weekend. So he's not yet signed, but they
also backpedaled. If you saw, I mean, Doran said that they almost assumed that what else would he be doing here? In a way,
playing. Pony said he was playing golf, I think, or something like that. But who knows?
I mean, I don't know. I don't listen to the fan on a regular basis, but I'm just saying that, like, just from seeing the tweets, I mean, I do believe he was around, but he didn't sign.
Yeah,
he's not on the Steelers. There are some saying he wasn't around. I mean, I didn't see him in person. He was photographed when he did this last year, where he was coming in and we didn't know what he was going to do. So
I know that there is a very much a hurry up and wait component to this among Steelers fans, right, Mike? Like, hey, we're going to do this, or we're going
more
to
so than last year. I think last year everybody knew they'd have to do this with him, but I don't think this year the fans want to do this again in terms of dragging this out.
And so that's kind of where the rub is that you just went through this last year. You know, this is what he does, especially at this point in his life and career. And now it's with a coach that he has. The Steelers already went and did that tender, the UFA tender thing,
which is different than last year. They did not do that to him last year.
They did not do that last year.
He wasn't there, but they didn't do anything like that last year.
So it's a protective measure for them that he's not just going to go somewhere else and essentially gives them individual rights that just to work out a contract with Pittsburgh.
Sure.
And so I don't know. I mean, I get it to your point that fans or whatever. I don't know why fans are so. It's going to be one of those two guys they have on the roster currently, three guys they have on the roster currently, if we include Rudolph, or Rodgers is then added in. I heard Mike McCarthy say something like 4 quarterbacks would be great.
The reason why, before I give you why fans are upset, here's the issue. And obviously,
I know why fans are upset. I'm just saying that it's going to be the same thing last year. I don't know if it's going to drag out as long as it did in theory before training camp, but you're just going to have to do the dance here, and it's going to be.
No, I can give you why it's different. I'm not even saying being upset because obviously it's just.
We'll know by the end of July. Like, that's just where you got to leave it with Aaron Rodgers.
Now, if Rodgers joins, and everyone just still assumes he's likely going to come back.
Assumes that's going to happen.
Yeah. Assuming, as we're speaking here on May 11th on this recording, he is not yet officially signed, despite multiple reporting. But assuming he is on the Steelers and does sign, you then would assume they likely would trade Mason Rudolph to whatever. However, I don't think that's that cut and dry. And you poo-pooed the 4 quarterback comment. Mike McCarthy is 62 years old and in win now mode. I don't think this team is going to go ahead and win a title, which is why I thought hiring McCarthy was bizarre. And why I actually think the best thing for the franchise would be for Rodgers to say no and for them to have a bad year and develop one of these quarterbacks and not do this song and dance ever again. That might be the best thing for the franchise. They're not going to do that, though. This is what I tell people all the time. The Pittsburgh Steelers would rather literally go in the playoffs, lose right away, get embarrassed, than only win 6 games and miss out. They would rather do that, even if they know they're not going to win a championship. They would rather do it. In the NFL, the way it's set up, it is not better to do that year in and year out. It is better to miss out every now and then. They don't want to. So if that is their mentality, and that is what Mike McCarthy is saying, etc., if you have Aaron Rodgers on your roster, George, because assuming he's going to be the guy, aside from just wanting to develop the quarterback, the other issue is he's not going to play every game. He didn't last year. Nobody does. But certainly at 42, 43, he's going to have a birthday in December. He's not going to play every game. So if you don't have him every game, but you have him as your starter, and he was better than anything they had the last 5 years last year. He was good enough. He's bottom tier starter, but he had 24 TDs, I think only 7 picks. Like, he was fine. He wasn't great, but he was fine. Certainly better than Kenny Pickett or Mitch Trubisky or Mason Rudolph back in the day, or even the end of Ben Roethlisberger. But when he misses a game, if you trade Mason, you're then putting in either Will Howard, who basically is still a rookie because he didn't play at all last year, or Drew Aller, who has a lot of talent, or who is a rookie, who has a lot of talent, a lot of raw talent. But I talked to a lot of coaches in and out of college football who are either really high on his potential or think. I have a source at Penn State who thinks Drew Aller is single-handedly what was the problem last year. because of his ego. I've heard that. And I'm not saying that's an issue what I've seen with the Steelers so far, but you are far from having Will Howard or Drew Aller, despite Drew Aller's potential and raw talent, being able to win you games in the NFL now. So you would have Aaron Rodgers and your backups would be Will Howard and Drew Aller, because Drew Aller is a third-round pick as a rookie. He's making the team. Breaking news.
Yeah.
Making the team. I would wonder, and this is a conversation maybe for another day because I do want to give you the Aaron Rodgers of it all here, but I'm going to throw this out there that few are actually bringing up. If Rodgers signs and he's your starter, and Drew Aller is your guy that is your project, because Mike McCarthy clearly loves him. He didn't even bring on any, friendly guy from Slippery Rock for rookie minicamp that's just going to hang around and throw some passes. No, it was all only Drew Aller. And by the way, Will Howard can't go to that. Obviously, he's not a rookie. But they didn't bring in any other rookies. It was just Drew Aller working with him, dumbing down the mechanics, making him go slower on purpose, trying to really get everything he can out of Drew Aller. Because, again, raw talent's there. There's a reason why he was a 5-star prospect going to Penn State. And he underachieved and was not great in their big games. But still, there's something to potentially believe, and I could see taking a flyer on him if you were a quarterback guru like Mike McCarthy. But if that's the case and you didn't draft Will Howard, maybe you trade Will Howard for a draft pick and you keep Mason there as your security for the 2 or 3 starts that Rodgers is going to miss those games, figuring he's healthy enough to play the others. I want to throw that out there because if you have 2 rookies pretty much as your guys behind Aaron Rodgers and you're in win now mode, when Rodgers doesn't play and he won't play a game, how does that look? Is Aller or Howard ready? Maybe you need to keep Mason there. And if Aller is your guy for the future, if Drew Aller is your guy for the future, maybe you deal Will Howard. But to put a pin in that for a future show, here is why it is different than just the fans not understanding Aaron Rodgers does this every year and why were you not annoyed last year and now you're annoyed this year. Here's the difference. And this is what I've been saying. And this is why I'm more annoyed this year. Last year, I knew this would be the case. I expected it. It's annoying, but I knew he'd eventually play and everything would be fine. And to Aaron Rodgers' credit, George, the passive-aggressive comments that some Packer fans were annoyed by at the end of the tenure where he would, take all the blame and put it on everybody else and not on him, the whole rumors that he got McCarthy out of town, the political comments or being on the McAfee show all the time that he made when he was with the Jets. None of that happened with Pittsburgh last year. He was a great, upstanding citizen. He was a great team guy. Everyone in the locker room loved him. Everyone I've talked to that covered him every day in media loved being around him. He was a guy's guy. He was not on the McAfee show hardly at all. He was not making political comments. He wasn't, floating out, I'm going to be running for vice president like he did a year earlier. He was on the up and up and was just playing football. And he was fine for his age, and they got in the playoffs. That was fine. That was 1 year, though. And I know he knows McCarthy. This is now year 2. Here's the difference. At the beginning of this offseason, something happened that has never happened in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that is Art Rooney II went out there early in the offseason and made a public comment in which he really, really exerted himself and stood firm. Usually Art Rooney II is very wishy-washy. He'll dance around everything. He always does his January, February thing with WT, pretty much is always the TV station he picks to sit down with. But he's always wishy-washy and dances around, and it's always just, it never makes you feel good about what he's saying. And unlike in recent years, unlike last year, this is the very first time, George, in the history of Aaron Rodgers, the end of the Packers, the whole Jets, coming to the Steelers last year. Not one time did an owner, a GM, or anyone go out there publicly and say, Aaron, here's a deadline. The Packers didn't even give him one the year before he eventually would have it be his last year. Neither did the Jets any of those 2 years, of course, one coming off an injury. This offseason, Art Rooney II said publicly he wanted an answer, yes or no, from Aaron before the draft. And I apologize for any children out there because I have 2 girls. Aaron Rodgers basically, metaphorically speaking, said, F you. Because Aaron Rodgers didn't give him an answer by the draft.
Draft came and went. It was a great time.
The draft came and went, and Art Rooney II tucked his tail between his legs and backpedaled and literally then tried to argue he didn't give a deadline. I did not hallucinate. And whether you want to argue whether it was because people try to do this too, whether you want to argue, George, whether it was a firm deadline or not, back in February when Art Rooney II said he wanted an answer by the draft, for him to even flirt with a deadline and say when he wanted an answer is way different than a year ago. So I do believe the Steelers look way worse this year than a year ago. I could see doing it one more time for Tomlin, and I could see trying to bring in a veteran because Pickett wasn't working. I could see cutting bait there. I could see bringing him in, and you don't want to do the OTAs and all that bullshit, and you come in June. That's fine for last year. To do it again after you said you wouldn't with a coach he knows, so it's not a new system, and Art Rooney II said there's a deadline for the decision, and then Rodgers thumbs his nose at that deadline. And then now we have reporting, as you mentioned. Rodgers is pretty much probably laughing at all these tweets. He probably is. People are arguing about whose reporting is legit or what's going on or whether Crowley really knew or whether it was really Doran's information as a former NFL player or whether that reporting is legit or whether they did enough homework as breaking news, because neither one of them, and they admit this, they're not normally newsbreakers, but they had this. And then there's national media that are basically ignoring their existence, and Pelissero and Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter pretty much pretending that didn't happen, and they're citing themselves when they didn't have it first. But then they're providing contrary information. And Schefter went on the McAfee show today and said he has no Rodgers update at all, which is bizarre because he's one of the top newsbreakers in the sport, even though Rodgers did tell him 2 years ago to lose his number. So you wonder who he's calling, because it can't be Aaron Rodgers. But assuming Doran isn't talking to Rodgers and personally, that's where we are right now. And Rodgers is probably laughing at all of this. He's laughing at all of this. He may know right now that he's going to come in June. He may right now know that he's not going to play. He may right now try to have some stupid leverage with some other team that I don't think is really going to happen. Who knows? But George, Art Rooney II, do you not think this makes the Steelers look worse than last year? Art Rooney II said, here's a deadline, and Rodgers flipped him off. That makes the franchise look worse.
And it makes the franchise not look aligned, right, between your ownership, your head coach, and your general manager.
Yeah, I mean, McCarthy wasn't on the job that long.
Sure. But But mainly the top two guys, the general manager and the owner.
Yeah, Omar Khan was there. Yeah, he's been there. And
in the fact that
if you believe Crowley is correct, then Omar Khan lied. Flat lie.
We've already seen Khan be kind of exposed with the whole Mackay Lemon deal and the Philadelphia trading ahead of them as, okay, he kind of got egg on his face here, even though the Steelers didn't admit that.
Right.
And so,
he had egg on his face for sure.
Yeah. No one knows who's the guy we wanted. Like, well, we got
you called him. Like, you're on the phone.
We have literal video and photographic and audio evidence.
We can check the caller ID. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
No, they admitted the night after Lemon said he was on the phone with the Steelers. I was on the conference call. Omar Khan literally said, I can't confirm that. And it's like, okay, we'll just wait for the video to come out.
Wait for the video to come out. Yeah.
We've got a video. Like, you're calling Lemon a liar here.
So it's a franchise that, as you know, is very traditional and set in its ways sometimes, but it could also behoove it to be honestly a little more less forthcoming with the things that it says about deadlines and whatnot like that.
Yeah,
right?
But they did that last year. Art Rooney II didn't have a deadline a year ago. He had a deadline this year.
Art Rooney II shouldn't say anything, honestly.
But he did, unfortunately.
I know.
See, that's what I keep telling fans. I'm sure you see it. People say, well, he shouldn't have said this. Well, he never says this. Or it wasn't really a hard deadline.
Yeah.
I am sorry to break it to you. He did say it.
Yeah.
Here
Steve
on
Bisciotti just did a press conference earlier this spring after they fired John Harbaugh. And it's the first one he did like in nearly a decade. And
that was a lit presser, though. That was a good presser.
Great. And it's also why, like,
very honest.
You, as an owner, like, he's smart to just be like, I'm not going to be the visual guy, but the Rooneys have always.
Somebody said, "What if they would have won the division? Would that have changed your?" And he's like, "No, I wanted him gone anyway."
No, still was going to fire his ass.
No, that was great. No, Art Rooney II, he doesn't do what Bisciotti did because Bisciotti did a whole presser. Literally, I'm not even. Art Rooney II has a sit down with WTAE.
Yeah.
WTAE, not PXI, not KDK. WTAE. And I like Andrew Stocky and company, but that is who he picks every time. He does the one-on-one. Great, fine. Pick them. They're historic. Ashley Otis is great, and Andrew Stocky's been around forever. I watched him as a kid. He's really nice to me every time I'm around him. No problem with WTAE. I've done stuff for them before, but that's who he picks. So my point of saying he picks them all the time, he knows what he's getting. It's not like he's uncomfortable. He's not even doing the Bisciotti thing where he's an oppressor where, I could go or anyone else who covers the team could go or, Crowley doesn't go to pressers, but he could go and say, can you confirm my reporting? That's not allowed. It's a one-on-one thing. It's very orchestrated. It comes off. But this year he went off the cuff and he gave a deadline. Again, I don't think he wasn't firm with the terminology, but he said the words, I would like to know by the draft. And Aaron Rodgers heard it and laughed in his face because we are far from the draft and he does not know. Do you believe, because some believe this as a conspiracy theory, they already know. And I believe they do not know. Do you believe right now that Aaron Rodgers has told the Steelers yes or no, or that he has not told them an answer?
I don't think he's no. I don't think.
I agree. But if you talk to Steeler Nation on Twitter, there are some people that think that they already know this answer.
Oh yeah.
No, it does not.
The guy's notoriously a recluse. Like, why would he?
He has a self-titled documentary called Enigma. That's all you need to know. Yeah. And I've even said this. As much as Aaron Rodgers annoys me sometimes, he is not who to point fingers at this year if you're a Steeler fan in terms of who you're mad at. Again, I think you should be mad at Art Rooney II and
for setting the table this way. Yeah.
Rooney's deadline. George, in all reality, if you're a PR person, I agree he shouldn't have gave a deadline. He did. He shouldn't have done so. He should know this player is going to make my deadline look foolish. I can't give a deadline. George, I would not even put it past Aaron Rodgers to hear the deadline, be turned off by the deadline, and basically say to himself, oh, you want to know by the draft? Oh, it's going to be way after that now. Like, he doesn't want to have you have any leverage. But the other reason why this looks worse, people always say the Steelers have no leverage here because they're in win now mode. McCarthy wants to win now. They have an older coach. And if they don't have Rodgers, they're clearly not going to because you have younger quarterbacks or a career backup in Mason Rudolph. True. What leverage does Aaron freaking Rodgers have in the year of our Lord 2026? He had leverage for the Jets that wanted to market themselves and think they were a player away when they weren't. He had leverage for Green Bay at the end when they were still a contender. He had leverage for even last year's Steelers team because Mike Tomlin wanted to freaking win, and he was way better than what they've had and proved it. And Minnesota maybe had some interest, etc. I do not believe there's any validity to this Arizona bullshit. And even if he goes there, they're not good. I don't believe there's any validity to any other team that could be mentioned. What is he waiting for Matthew Stafford to break his leg so he can ride onto the Rams ship? Like, I don't see that happening. Assuming nobody gets hurt. George, I don't think he has as much leverage as he thinks he does, or he shouldn't. He shouldn't is a better way of putting it. What I would do if I'm the Steelers, even if I'm Omar Khan and I couldn't stop Art Rooney II from his deadline. If I'm Omar Khan, here's what I would do. We're in May. And I've already lied on shows. If Rodgers was in town, Omar Khan literally said he didn't know where he was. So if that's true, that's bizarre, or else you're lying. But, excuse me, here's what I would do if I was Omar Khan. I would call Aaron Rodgers and say, okay, you are the best thing that we could have to win this year. We're also your best shot. We'll bring you back. The money we were giving you last year was low-end money for a starter. You played better than that money. We have tons of cap space. We'll go up to 25 mil or 20 mil or whatever it is. If that's not enough for you, as you're saying, as some are saying, if this is about money and you want more, we're not going to do that. This is where we are. If you don't want to be here in June, fine. But this is where we are. And if Rodgers scoffs, like, you give him a deadline. Forget the previous deadline. It's been passed. But Omar Khan should call Aaron Rodgers, give him an offer, give him a deadline, because they clearly want him, even though I wouldn't bring him back, and then stick to that freaking thing. And if Aaron Rodgers, George, when you call him and say, 25 mil, show up in June, yes or no? If he would say, I want $30 million, or he would say, I don't want to show up until August, whatever. Or he would even say, I got to think about it because of my personal life, and I don't know yes or no still.
Mm-hmm.
We're now in May. I would say, you were an upstanding citizen in 2025. Thank you very much for that season. No qualms here. We're moving on. And if Aaron Rodgers then goes on the McAfee show and says the Steelers lied to me and I've been forced to retire when I actually wanted to play, and F the Steelers, if I'm Omar Khan, I would say, so be it. That's a shame. Because I'm not going to just let this man embarrass me. If George, if he wants to play,
mm-hmm.
and the Steelers would say no, where is he playing? And which situation's better?
Yeah.
I would argue the Steelers have more leverage now than they did a year ago. So use it. And I don't think he needs to be around earlier. If he has a rough season, it has nothing to do with when he arrives. I mean, he doesn't want to be there for OTAs, fine. Like, tell him to show up after. If Rodgers really knew what he wanted to do or wanted to respect the Steelers, he could at least let it be reported that he's going to play, or he could sign. And then I think we both know the Steelers, if he would tell the Steelers, I want to play, but I don't want to show up until June or July, the Steelers would be cool with that too. But this whole, we don't know. And this whole no answer and all this reporting is wrong. What does that do? Do you think we're going to see Aaron Rodgers on the Steelers this coming season?
Yes.
When do you think he shows up and signs?
July.
And if that is the case, is his season?
It's this or retire.
No. It's this or retire, which is why why they should use leverage. There is no
the only reason is to run it back one more time with McCarthy. And the same might have been the case if it was Tomlin, because he's got the respect for Tomlin, right?
There are some that have put it out there. They think he would rather play for Tomlin at this point. He already did the McCarthy thing.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that.
I actually think, and there is a conspiracy theory out there that they put out there, because if you remember the end of the season pressers, everybody said, including Rodgers even, this is going to be quicker than last year. The conspiracy theory is that if Tomlin was still the coach, it would have already been decided. Would have
made the decision, yeah.
He doesn't really want to do the McCarthy thing. There are some that believe he does not really want to do McCarthy. That it could backfire if that's why they hired him. There are some that have floated it that even if he wants to now, that they're going to get at odds in the middle of the season, that if they have a success, Aaron Rodgers is going to say it's because of him, and McCarthy's going to say it's because of him.
Yeah.
He's going to want credit as a quarterback guru. It's a little different. Whereas if Tomlin was there as a defensive guy, he would give all Rodgers credit for the offense. They worked together. They were very complimentary. Whereas McCarthy, if Rodgers has a really better year and a great year, people are going, and he has a better year, people are going to give credit to McCarthy as a quarterback guru. That's going to piss Rodgers off. And then they're going to be the same thing as before. I could see Rodgers not really, like, I already won a Super Bowl with you. What is the ceiling here? Like, we're not going to do it again. I don't know if he is thrilled about this scenario, but I also don't think he hates the man.
Yeah.
But the other part of the question is, if you believe he's coming back and you believe it's in July, and I believe he's coming back and playing, I maybe would say it maybe is end of June, not July, but who knows?
Okay.
Do you believe Rodgers has a better or worse individual season than 2025? He is going to be 1 year older. McCarthy's offense, you would think, is more suited to him than the way Tomlin ran a weird offense, even though Arthur Smith was there.
I'm inclined to say better because
it's McCarthy's offense versus Arthur Smith. Like, who do you like?
It's that, but save for Ionichor, the rest of that young line is a year older. They may not have Broderick Jones figure out what happens there, but the rest of the line, older, Gainwell, great.
They have really no running game, at least not a consistent one.
Yeah, no, it's Gainwell totally as a screen pass, which reminds me of how Ryan Grant was used, Aaron Jones.
But I mean, all this Rodgers talk, no one's talking about the rest of the team. That's what I keep saying too. This team is not a championship team with or without Rodgers. That's why I wouldn't do this again.
DK,
Rodgers coming back and not leaving them anywhere.
They
bring in Pittman. They have more receiver help now, so they have a second receiver. It's not just DK Metcalf.
In theory, the offensive line gets more experienced, and the wide receivers are bolstered a little bit. And yeah, you still got kind of a question mark in the back, some question marks or some needed development in the backfield. But then add in McCarthy's offense. James Campen was the O-line coach when Rodgers was there in Green Bay, and he's now in Pittsburgh.
It might also depend on how you evaluate him, because I think he was okay last year. He had 24 TDs, 7 picks, but analytically speaking, he was worse than his counting numbers.
Sure.
He was back-end starter. Back end of the 32.
Kind of to be expected, right?
At his age now. But I mean, does he go from back end to the worst? Like, where does he go? Like, does he play as many games? He got to get to at least 15 games for that to be better. Last year was actually, for someone his age, was a pretty damn good year in a bad offense.
Yes.
For him.
Yes.
So the bar to be better than that is actually relatively high.
Yeah.
If this was 10 years ago, for sure. But if he gets hurt, that's a worse year. You got to have him healthy. I am tempted to believe it'll be a worse year for the team, for him, even with Pittman there, even with McCarthy there.
We have a better offensive year, but the team and the defense was bad. The defense was not as good as it should have been last year.
And if you're saying July, he's getting less time with the receivers to develop anything.
That's just where you're at now. Like this,
but Pittman's new. Pittman's new. When has he worked with Pittman before?
I know.
Is that not anything? I mean,
that almost. It's.
You could argue he needs to show up earlier this year because at least these are new players.
New players and a familiar to him, a new but old offense to him. So,
and also, George, a new but old offense. McCarthy has said that now he said this, and we're not coaches. He claims the offense he ran with the Cowboys is not exactly carbon copy to the Packers offense.
Correct.
Meaning, Rodgers is obviously a very, very intelligent quarterback, arguably maybe the smartest ever. But it is not like he's going to exactly implant himself into the exact offense he ran 10 years ago, even though he remembers those plays. There's new terminology. There's new plays in there. You would figure a savant would need a few weeks to learn something. I mean, you would think. Like, it's a little different. It is not people are almost, you could argue, overblowing that it's the same coach he had before. It'll just be the same thing. He's not Dak Prescott. It's a different situation. I mean, McCarthy had a different QB with the Cowboys than Rodgers. I could see hiccups early on in that season. With no 100%. Chemistry with Pittman, with a bad defense, with no running game.
No chemistry, and the preseason games are irrelevant and on the verge of extinction, and it shows in not only some of the Steelers, but like some of these teams when they go out week one.
Even if he's there, he won't play those. Rodgers won't play those.
All over the place, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I should almost do it over under that. You think he's playing a preseason game? I mean, no, I don't know.
No.
So, but how is he developing chemistry with no playing? I mean, this is what I'm saying. So I think that it's on the board that he plays worse. I think it's on the board that he plays worse. And I think even if he plays better, this team is not any better than crawling in the playoffs. This is not a championship team.
No, same. Yeah,
so if that's the case, if I'm running the Steelers, and my last name is Rooney, I would have told him months ago, we're moving on. We're going to develop somebody else. We maybe would win less games, but it doesn't matter. We're not winning a championship with you. Thanks for last year. We're going to move on finally, instead of continuously kicking this can down the road for years on end. And if you like Drew Aller and you're McCarthy and he loves Drew Aller, then develop Drew Allard's ass. But bringing Rodgers in for 1 year to lose a wild card game, what does that do? Mm-hmm. You know who are two people in this world, George, that have lost a lot of wild card games? Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. Why do they need to lose another wild card game?
I watched a lot of them.
I don't understand why they need to lose more wild card games. Not even you watched a lot of them. McCarthy lost them with the Packers or then the Cowboys.
Sorry, the Packers beat them in Dallas too. That was fun. That was a good one.
And then Rodgers lost them when he was with the Steelers. I mean, he didn't even get in the damn thing with the Jets. Like I just don't.
Game too. Rodgers Hail Mary. Ugh.
I mean, you're not going to play the San Francisco 49ers to get any revenge there. They beat you in the playoffs several times. They should have drafted you all that BS. You're from there. I get it all. You're not. The only way you're playing the 49ers in the playoffs is if they're in the Super Bowl, and you're not getting there. So I don't know. Like, I don't buy the whole LaFleur Arizona thing, and they're not. Even if he goes there, they're not better. They're not going to win. They're far too. He doesn't have the leverage that people think he has. Like it's either the Steelers or don't play. For the Steelers, it's either Rodgers or develop a younger guy. Maybe developing a younger guy is actually better for you. And it's probably going to be Rodgers, but I don't think they have an answer. And there was a deadline and he thumbed his nose at it. So it's a little more disrespectful this year than last year for me. And I think last year, most of the Steelers fans wanted him. I think that is not a majority right now. I think there are a lot of fans that do not want him. We'll see how the season goes. I mean, if he plays well and they win some games, then it'll be fine. But I think it's on the board that he has a worse year and the team has a worse year. And
presumably we will know
eventually. I mean, I don't know about soon. I don't know about when, but eventually. And yeah, again, if we didn't have the Rooney deadline, I could see a little bit more of this being the same as last year. But Rooney set a deadline. He shouldn't have done so. The first like strong thing he said all in the offseason any year is this, and it's going horribly. But it'll be fun. Once Rodgers gets there and goes to training camp and everyone, loves the 40-plus-year-old doing the air guitar in the middle of Latrobe in St. Vincent College, then yes, we will stop talking about his waiting game, but we'll start talking about him again when they don't play well as a team. And I think it's on the board that he is not better. I mean, his birthday is in December, so he actually turns another age prior to the playoffs. This is not even like he has a summer birthday. This is a December birthday, man. I could even argue it's better for his legacy to just call this a day. I don't know who's really benefiting here, but it'll be interesting that if he is there and who is moved, assuming it is Mason Rudolph, I'd like a 5%er, and I'd like some credit if it is Will Howard, because I don't see why you need to be developing both of those young QBs. McCarthy didn't draft Will Howard, and Will Howard can go on as many shows as he wants talking about how he's the next guy. He's going to wait around. McCarthy likes Aller more, clearly. We'll see. I mean,
waiting game continues for the Steelers. We will wait as well as we put a bow on.
Unfortunately, we'll wait and then we'll talk about it like everybody else. So there's nothing you can do.
It's a fun show. Reminder to find us wherever you get your podcast. Search Howitzer in your favorite podcast app, including Google, TuneIn, Spotify, and more. Just search Howitzer or Howitzer Buzzsaw to find us. Also, thanks to Hyphen Podcast Group, bringing great podcast to the people, a Morgantown-based podcast collective, hyphenpodcastgroup.com, and on socials.
Yep, you can find us everywhere you get your podcasts. You can find us on social. If you're not able to find us, you're just not trying hard enough. And it is Aaron Rodgers' world that we unfortunately are still living in. The sun, moon, the stars here in Pittsburgh still surround him. The Pirates are actually winning and competitive and hitting home runs, and nobody cares because Aaron Rodgers, will he show up, will he not show up? I mean, it's where we are. He provided a nice cover to the Penguins. They ended the postseason horrendously, losing to the rival, horrible first few games of the series. It got a day or so. Now it's back to Aaron Rodgers talk. So they should thank Aaron Rodgers. That's where we are right now. And I think we're going to have some entertainment at the end in the conference finals in both the NBA and the NHL, even though the format probably robs us of that in the NHL a little bit. But fun postseasons, pressure on some teams. I'm tuned in. I'm plugged in. And even down there where you are in the DMV, covering Maryland in that space, The Wizards get the number 1 overall pick in the NBA. Will they finally be able to get something going here? Carmelo Anthony thinks they're a playoff team. Is that play in, play off? What the hell is that? We need a clarifier for Melo. A little different bar for the two, but, building something interesting, at least with Trae Young and Devance or whoever else they draft. And maybe much to the chagrin of John Wall, who seemed like not excited about another first overall pick for the Wizards, the last one being him. Does not seem like he really wants to be the ambassador for the Wizards. Maybe it almost seemed like, George, you're a little bitter sitting there saying, did I get all this help for me? Like Russell Westbrook at the end of his career? I don't know. But nonetheless, will basketball be back in the
district? Questions. We'll try to find the answers. This has been another edition of the Howitzer and Buzzsaw Show, where we conquer sweeps, pseudo deadlines, and sports radio.
One day at a time.